Chapter 1. The Rescue. The sun, a weak, anemic disk choked by perpetual dust storms, cast a sepia pallor across the landscape. The air, thick with the grit of pulverized concrete and decaying metal, tasted of rust and despair. Grisham squinted, his eyes, the gray-blue of a winter sky, scanning the skeletal remains of a highway rest stop, half buried under shifting dunes of sand and debris. Years of war had etched themselves onto his face, leaving a roadmap of scars and weariness, but his posture remained taut, alert, a coiled spring ready to strike. He wasn't here by chance. A whisper on the wind, a rumor picked up from a desperate scavenger, had led him to this desolate spot. A rumor of children, stolen and sold like cattle in this broken land. The silence, broken only by the mournful howl of the wind whistling through the shattered windows of the abandoned diner, was almost unbearable. It pressed in on him, a physical weight, amplifying the desolation of the scene. Rusting hulks of cars, their paint bleached and flaked away by sun and sand, lay scattered like decaying bones across the cracked asphalt. Twisted metal groaned under the weight of the shifting sands, a constant, metallic whisper of a dying world. The air itself seemed to vibrate with the phantom echoes of the past. Laughter, shouts, the screech of tires all now swallowed by the relentless advance of the wasteland. Then he saw her. Crouched behind a rusting gas pump, her back pressed against the cold metal, was a girl. No older than 12, maybe 13, her clothes ragged and dirty, but her eyes held a startling intensity, a flicker of defiance that burned brighter than the dying sun. Chains, thick and brutal, bound her wrists, the links biting into her skin. She was small, frail, yet there was an unyielding strength in her posture, a refusal to break, that resonated deep within Grisham's battle-hardened heart. He recognized the desperation, the quiet, simmering fury of a soul forced to endure the unspeakable. It was a familiar echo from the war. Beside her stood two men, their faces obscured by dust and grime, but their demeanor spoke volumes. They were scavengers, raiders, the kind who preyed on the weak, the desperate. Their laughter, harsh and cruel, cut through the oppressive silence, a mockery of the girl's silent suffering. One of them, larger than the other, cracked his knuckles, his eyes lingering on Sarah's slight frame with a predatory gleam. The other, leaner, more wiry, held a crudely fashioned whip, its leather thongs worn and scarred from past uses. Grisham knew he couldn't hesitate. Every instinct screamed at him to move, to intervene, to break the chains binding this child. But years of war had also taught him caution, the grim mathematics of survival. 2 against 1 was a losing proposition, even for a man like him. He needed a plan, a way to minimize risk while maximizing his chances of success. He studied their movements, their body language, listening to the subtle shifts in their conversation, searching for an opening, a weakness in their defenses. He waited, his senses honed to a razor's edge, a predator observing his prey. The opportunity came swiftly and unexpectedly. A sudden gust of wind whipped sand into their faces, momentarily blinding them. The larger man cursed, wiping his eyes, his grip on Sarah momentarily loosening. It was all the opening Grisham needed. He moved with a speed that belied his age, a phantom blurring across the ravaged landscape. His movements were precise, efficient, years of military training ingrained into every muscle, every fiber of his being. His hand, calloused and scarred, snaked out, grabbing the larger man's arm and twisting it with brutal force. A sharp cry of pain shattered the eerie silence. Before the second raider could react, Grisham's foot lashed out, connecting squarely with the man's jaw. He crumpled to the ground, unconscious. Grisham had broken the whip. Now he faced only one opponent. With Sarah still chained to the gas pump, the fight would be short, brutal. He moved quickly, his experience shining, as he disabled the remaining opponent. There was nothing graceful about it, just survival. He then turned his attention to Sarah. The chains were crude, but strong. He worked swiftly, using the broken fragments of the whip and a jagged piece of metal he'd pulled from the abandoned car to pry the lock open. The sound of snapping metal was almost lost in the wind. The look on Sarah's face, a mixture of awe and fear, confirmed his judgment. With Sarah finally free, they ran. The setting sun cast long, ominous shadows across the wastelands, but for Grisham and Sarah, the shadows held a promise of escape, a chance to find a better future, a place where the cruel laughter of raiders was replaced by the sound of hope. Their escape was not a sprint of freedom, but a desperate, brutal flight. Their journey was far from over. The wasteland stretched out before them, a merciless expanse of danger and uncertainty. But for the first time in a long time, Grisham felt a spark of something other than weariness in his heart. A spark of purpose, and a growing sense of responsibility for this small, resilient girl who possessed a spirit stronger than the unforgiving world around them. The taste of dust and the smell of fear clung to him, but there was something else, too. A fragile, flickering hope for tomorrow. The adrenaline still thrummed in Grisham's veins, a frantic drumbeat against the backdrop of the howling wind. He didn't have time to savor their narrow escape. The slavers wouldn't be far behind. He glanced at Sarah, her face pale but resolute, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. She was surprisingly calm, considering the circumstances. He'd initially underestimated her. There was a steeliness in her gaze, a quiet determination that mirrored his own. "They'll be back," Grisham said, his voice low, clipped. He adjusted the makeshift sling he'd fashioned for her injured arm, a nasty gash inflicted by one of the slavers' whips. "We need to move, and we need to move fast." Sarah nodded, her gaze sweeping the desolate landscape. "They usually patrol the old highway every hour. If we can reach the abandoned rail line by then, we can avoid them for a while. It's less patrolled. They prefer the roads." Her words, delivered in a surprisingly clear and level tone, surprised Grisham. This wasn't the terrified child he'd initially found. This was a survivor, sharp and resourceful. Her knowledge of the slavers' habits was unsettling, and terrifyingly precise. He hadn't expected such detailed insight from a young girl who had, until moments ago, been a captive. Their escape route took them through a maze of crumbling buildings and choked ravines. The setting sun cast long, eerie shadows that danced and writhed like specters, adding to the oppressive atmosphere. Grisham led the way, his senses heightened, his every muscle tense. He moved with the practiced grace of a seasoned soldier, his steps silent, his awareness encompassing everything around him. Sarah, despite her injury and exhaustion, kept pace, her small body agile and surprisingly strong. She moved with a certain familiarity with the desolate surroundings, as if this ravaged land was her own private hunting ground. The abandoned highway loomed before them, a ribbon of cracked asphalt snaking through the wastelands. It was a perilous path, a gauntlet they needed to cross quickly. In the distance, a low hum grew louder, the sinister drone of a patrol vehicle, a soulless metal eye scanning the horizon. Grisham quickly pointed to a deep ravine, overgrown with twisted, mutated vegetation. "Down there. It's too narrow for them, and they often avoid the dense undergrowth," he hissed, pulling Sarah toward the jagged chasm. 6. They scrambled down the ravine, the thorny branches tearing at their clothes. The mutated plants, their leaves a sickly yellow-green, seemed to writhe and twist, as if sensing their presence. They pressed deeper into the tangled growth, the air thick with the cloying odor of decay. The drone's hum faded, then returned, closer this time, as it hovered overhead. Their hearts pounded in their chests as the drone circled above, its optical sensors seemingly scanning for any signs of movement. Grisham flattened himself against the ground, pulling Sarah down with him. They lay there, motionless, holding their breath, as the drone passed overhead. The silence that followed was deafening, punctuated only by the frantic beat of their hearts. Suddenly, a sharp crack split the tense silence. One of the slavers' tracking devices that Sarah had dropped near the gas pump had been found. It had exploded and triggered an alert. They had to move quickly, if they were to get away. Grisham knew they wouldn't have much time before the slavers arrived in force. Emerging from the ravine, they found themselves facing a vast, desolate plain, stretching endlessly to the horizon. In the distance, they saw the rusting skeleton of an abandoned railway line. Their hope sparked anew. "The rail line," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible above the wind. "It's our best chance." Their journey across the plain was fraught with peril. The relentless sun beat down on them, baking the earth to a near-infernal temperature. The air shimmered with heat, distorting the already bleak landscape. They encountered scavengers, driven to desperation by hunger and thirst, their eyes burning with a desperate hunger. Grisham managed to deter them with a display of his combat skills, a few deft movements that suggested the potential for brutal force. He didn't kill them, he couldn't afford the time, but he made it clear that he was not someone to be trifled with. As they neared the railway line, the patrol drones grew more frequent, their metallic hum a constant reminder of the danger that surrounded them. Several times, they had to take cover, waiting for the drones to pass before they could continue. It was a brutal game of cat and mouse, where one mistake could cost them everything. Sarah proved invaluable during these moments. Her eyes, sharp and observant, spotted the drones long before Grisham even sensed their approach, giving them 7 precious seconds to find cover. Her knowledge of the terrain and the slavers' patterns was nothing short of remarkable, as if she'd been planning this escape all along. She seemed to anticipate their moves, suggesting alternate routes, warning him of potential hazards. Reaching the railway line was like reaching a sanctuary. The rusty rails, half buried in sand, offered some semblance of protection, a line of defense against the relentless pursuit of their pursuers. They moved along the line, using the rusted carriages as cover, their movements swift and silent. The drone's hum receded into the distance, replaced by the mournful creak of the wind whistling through the skeletal remains of the old trains. As darkness descended, casting long shadows across the ravaged landscape, Grisham and Sarah found a relatively sheltered spot beneath a rusting locomotive. Exhausted but alive, they huddled together, sharing what little water and food they had left. The wasteland slept around them, but neither of them dared to relax. Their journey was far from over. The slavers would be back, and they needed to be prepared. But for now, they had survived another day. They had outrun the immediate danger, escaping the clutches of the slavers. The future was still uncertain, but hope flickered within them, fragile yet persistent as a desert flower. And as Grisham looked at Sarah, her small frame curled against his larger one, he felt a surge of determination. He would get her home, even if it meant facing the entirety of this ravaged world. The wind howled a mournful dirge around the crumbling farmhouse, a skeletal silhouette against the bruised purple of the twilight sky. The structure itself seemed to sigh under the weight of years and neglect. Shattered windows gaped like empty sockets, and the roof sagged precariously, threatening to collapse under the next gust of wind. Dust motes, disturbed by their entry, danced in the weak beams of the setting sun, painting the interior in a ghostly, ethereal light. The air was thick with the scent of decay and damp earth, a stark contrast to the metallic tang of the highway they'd just left behind. Grisham surveyed the interior with a practiced eye, his senses alert for any signs of danger. Years of war had honed his instincts to a razor's edge, making him acutely aware of potential threats lurking in the shadows. He moved cautiously, his boots crunching on broken glass and scattered debris, his hand never far from the worn leather strap of his battered rifle. Sarah followed close behind, her injured arm cradled gently, her gaze scanning the room with an intensity that belied her youth. 8. The farmhouse was a testament to the passage of time and the ravages of neglect. Furniture lay in splintered heaps, its once vibrant colors now faded and muted, ghostly reminders of a life that had once flourished within these walls. Wallpaper peeled from the decaying plaster, revealing the bare, crumbling brick beneath. In one corner, a rusted metal bed frame stood sentinel, its mattress long since rotted away, leaving only the skeletal frame as a testament to its former function. They found a relatively intact corner, relatively speaking. A section of the floor was still solid. There was still half a wall standing, creating a small space from the rest of the decaying space. Here, they would rest for the night. Despite the palpable sense of decay, a spark of hope flickered within the desolate space. Amidst the ruins, Sarah discovered a half-buried wooden crate, its contents remarkably preserved. Inside, lay a collection of tools and spare parts, rusted gears, corroded wires, and a collection of oddly preserved electronics. Among them, a battered radio, its casing dented and scarred, but seemingly intact. Sarah's eyes widened in recognition. She gently picked up the radio, her fingers tracing the contours of its casing with a mixture of awe and reverence. Grisham watched her, intrigued. He'd seen flashes of her resourcefulness throughout their escape, but this was different. There was a newfound purpose in her movements, a spark of determination that mirrored his own hardened resolve. She began to work with a quiet intensity, her small hands surprisingly dexterous as she disassembled and reassembled the radio's intricate components. She worked silently, her brow furrowed in concentration, her movements precise and purposeful. Grisham leaned against the crumbling wall, watching her with a growing respect. He knew she was a survivor, but the quiet efficiency with which she handled the intricate mechanisms of the radio surprised him. This wasn't just survival. This was an expertise. Hours passed, marked only by the rhythmic click of tools and the low hum of her focused breathing. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of fiery orange and deep indigo, mirroring the turmoil within their hearts. The air grew cooler, and the wind picked up, rattling the few remaining windows and sending a shiver through Grisham. Then, a crackle, a static hiss that filled the silence, followed by a faint, distorted voice. Sarah's eyes shone with triumph. She carefully adjusted a knob, and the static subsided, replaced by a clear, albeit faint, radio broadcast. A voice, crackling with 9. Static, announced news from a distant city. A voice of hope emerging from the desolate wasteland. The contrast between the decay of the farmhouse and the miraculous reappearance of communication was stark and unforgettable. In this crumbling ruin, a beacon of hope had been kindled, a fragile connection to a world they thought they'd lost forever. This small victory, this fragile connection, was a tangible symbol of their resilience, their refusal to surrender to the bleakness that surrounded them. Grisham felt a surge of unexpected emotion. It wasn't just the radio. It was the resurgence of hope that washed over him. He'd spent years fighting in a war that had seemed pointless, a relentless struggle against seemingly insurmountable odds. He'd seen too much death, too much despair. But in this crumbling farmhouse, With the faint crackle of a radio broadcasting news from somewhere outside this desperate corner of the world, he felt a flicker of renewed hope. Sarah, sensing his shift in demeanor, looked up, her face radiant. "It's working," she whispered, her voice filled with awe and wonder. "We can contact someone." The news broadcast, fragmented and distorted as it was, offered a glimpse of a world beyond their immediate reality. Reports of rebuilding efforts in distant cities, rumors of surviving communities, whispers of technological advancements. It was a fragile glimpse of hope, a hint that not everything was lost, that there was still a future to fight for. That night, huddled together in the ruined corner of the farmhouse, a sense of fragile peace settled over them. They listened to the radio broadcasts, their faces illuminated by the faint glow of its dial, the voices offering a faint reminder of the broader world. The sounds that escaped from the radio were a welcome change from the howling wind. The crackling and hissing created an odd companionship, a comfort in the vast loneliness of their refuge. They continued to hear from the radio until the battery eventually died. They drifted off to sleep, their dreams filled with the faint hope that the radio had offered, a promise of a better tomorrow, a future beyond the desolation of their present. The radio, a small symbol of hope in a world consumed by despair, had become a life raft in a sea of ruin. And as Grisham held Sarah close, the weight of their journey felt a little lighter. The radio was more than just a connection to the outside world. It was a testament to their strength, a symbol of their enduring spirit. They were survivors, not just of the brutal landscape, but of the brutal realities of a post-apocalyptic America. And even in the midst of devastation, hope, like a tenacious weed pushing through cracked concrete, could find a way to bloom. The next morning, armed with renewed determination, they continued their journey, the faint memory of the radio's voice echoing in their hearts, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope could endure. The journey continued, and they moved to the next destination. The memories of their hope, however, stayed with them, as they continued their journey to Franklin. The farmhouse receded behind them, swallowed by the encroaching gray of the morning. Before them lay a wall of green, a deceptive curtain hiding horrors unseen. This wasn't the familiar forest of their childhood memories, if they'd ever had such memories in this shattered world. This was something else entirely, a mutated forest, a grotesque parody of nature, born from the twisted ambitions of scientists long gone. The air hung heavy and humid, a thick, cloying blanket that clung to their skin. Twisted trees, their branches gnarled and reaching like skeletal fingers, clawed at the sky. Leaves, impossibly large and vibrant in unnatural shades of crimson and violet, dripped with a viscous, glistening fluid. The ground beneath their feet was soft and yielding, a deceptive carpet of moss concealing pitfalls and hidden dangers. Grisham, ever vigilant, led the way, his rifle held ready. His senses, honed by years of brutal survival, were on high alert. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, sent a jolt of adrenaline through him. Sarah, her arm still throbbing, followed close behind, her eyes scanning the dense undergrowth for any sign of movement. Her reliance on Grisham was palpable. He wouldn't let her down. The silence was unnerving, broken only by the occasional drip of the viscous fluid from the monstrous leaves. It was a silence that seemed to press in on them, a suffocating weight that amplified the tension in the air. It was a silence that screamed of lurking danger. The air itself felt thick with a palpable sense of unease. Then, a movement, a flash of color in the undergrowth, a creature, unlike anything either of them had ever seen before. It was small, no bigger than a dog, but its form was grotesquely distorted. Its skin was a patchwork of iridescent scales, its eyes glowed with an eerie, phosphorescent light. It moved with an unnerving fluidity, its limbs bending and contorting in ways that defied natural anatomy. It hissed, a sound like air escaping a punctured lung, and vanished back into the shadows. This was only a prelude. Soon they encountered the mutated vegetation. Vines, thick as pythons, snaked across their path, their thorns tipped with a venomous-looking fluid. Flowers, gargantuan and grotesquely beautiful, pulsed with a sickening rhythm. 11. Their petals dripping with a nectar that seemed to writhe with life. Trees pulsed with an unnerving bioluminescence. The deeper they ventured, the more unsettling the forest became. Each step carried the risk of encountering more of the grotesque inhabitants. The atmosphere was thick with an almost palpable sense of wrongness. The colors were too vivid, the sounds too unnatural, the smells too overpowering. It was a sensory assault, a nightmarish landscape that played havoc with their minds and nerves. They pressed on, pushing through the dense undergrowth, their bodies bruised and scratched. They fought their way through, cutting through vines, dodging pitfalls, and battling the ever-present feeling of being watched, of being stalked. There was no escape from the feeling of impending doom. The air seemed to crackle with anticipation. Night fell, plunging them into an even deeper darkness. The mutated flora seemed to come alive in the darkness, their bioluminescent glows creating a disturbing, alien landscape. Strange, guttural sounds echoed through the trees. The cries of unseen creatures, the rustle of unseen things moving through the undergrowth. They found a small clearing, a relatively safe space amidst the chaos. They huddled together for warmth and safety, the flickering light of their small fire offering a meager defense against the encroaching darkness and its insidious inhabitants. The fire cast dancing shadows on the grotesque vegetation surrounding them, creating a spectacle both beautiful and terrifying. The night was filled with terrors. They faced the constant threat of the mutated creatures, their forms shifting and changing in the firelight, their attacks relentless and unpredictable. They had to rely on their wits and their combined skills to survive. Grisham's experience in combat proved invaluable. His marksmanship, honed by years of warfare, allowed them to dispatch the creatures that dared to approach too closely. Sarah's knowledge of the forest's flora, however imperfect, helped them navigate the treacherous terrain, identifying paths and avoiding the deadliest pitfalls. One particularly terrifying encounter involved a creature that resembled a giant spider, its legs splayed in unnatural angles, its body covered in shimmering, poisonous hairs. It descended upon them with a terrifying roar, its many eyes glowing with malevolent intent. Grisham fired his rifle, its shots echoing through the night. 12. But the creature was too fast, too agile. Sarah, quick-thinking, used her knowledge of the poisonous plants to create a makeshift weapon, a concoction of crushed leaves and vines that caused the creature to recoil in agony and retreat into the undergrowth. It was a close call, a harrowing experience that left them shaken but alive. As dawn broke, painting the sky in hues of blood orange and sickly green, they emerged from the clearing, exhausted but alive. The forest seemed even more menacing in the pale light of the rising sun. They had survived the night, but their journey through the mutated forest was far from over. They pressed onward, their resolve strengthened by their shared ordeal. The forest, however, did not relinquish its hold so easily. They faced more creatures, more challenges, more terrors. They encountered giant, carnivorous fungi, their caps pulsating with a venomous glow. They battled serpentine plants that whipped at them with their thorny vines, aiming to ensnare and devour. They were hunted by things that moved through the air as well, their existence known by the rustling sounds they produced. Each encounter tested their limits, pushing them to the brink of despair. But they persevered, driven by a fierce determination to survive, to reach their destination, to find a world beyond the mutated wasteland. Their combined skills and unwavering resilience were their only allies in this nightmare landscape. Sarah's knowledge of the poisonous plants, gleaned from what remained of older texts and desperate scavenging, became increasingly vital to their survival. Her understanding of which plants to avoid, which to use for defense, proved a lifesaver on more than one occasion. Grisham's military training kept them disciplined, providing structure to their desperate struggle. Together, they were a force to be reckoned with, despite the horrors the forest threw at them. The journey through the forest was a brutal test of their physical and mental endurance. It was a relentless battle against nature gone wrong, a testament to the fragility of life in a world ravaged by man's folly. But it was also a testament to the strength of the human spirit, the resilience of the human heart, the unwavering power of hope in the face of overwhelming despair. The forest tested them to their limits, they survived, and continued their journey towards Franklin. The journey wasn't over, but for now, they had escaped the heart of the mutated wood. 13. The air grew colder. A sudden, inexplicable shift in the oppressive humidity. The vibrant, unnatural hues of the mutated flora seemed to dim, their bioluminescence flickering erratically as if struggling against some unseen force. A low hum, barely perceptible at first, began to resonate in their bones, a vibration that seemed to emanate from the very fabric of reality itself. Sarah stopped dead in her tracks, her hand instinctively reaching for Grisham's arm. He mirrored her reaction, his rifle held loosely at his side, his gaze fixed on the shimmering, distorted air ahead. The humming intensified, growing into a low, resonant thrumming that vibrated through the ground, up their legs, and into their very skulls. The world around them began to shimmer, the edges of trees and plants blurring and dissolving like watercolors in a sudden downpour. Colors pulsed and shifted, morphing into impossible combinations, a kaleidoscope of impossible hues that assaulted their senses. The air itself seemed to ripple, distorting their vision, making the forest around them appear both impossibly close and impossibly far. Then, a tear in reality. A shimmering, oval-shaped rift opened in the air before them, revealing a glimpse of something else. It wasn't a clear picture, more like a fragmented memory, a hazy image viewed through a dirty lens. They saw a sky, but not the bruised, sickly sky of their world. This sky was a breathtaking expanse of deep, cerulean blue, unmarred by the perpetual haze of pollution and decay. They saw structures, impossibly tall and slender, gleaming with a metallic sheen that defied earthly materials. They were buildings of impossible geometry, their lines clean and graceful, a stark contrast to the grotesque distortions of the mutated forest. These weren't the crumbling ruins of the old world. These were buildings that spoke of a future that was both alien and strangely alluring. They saw beings too, figures moving with an effortless grace that suggested both power and an alien understanding of movement. They were humanoid, vaguely so, but their forms defied easy categorization, their movements fluid and impossible. Their colors were startling. Luminous greens and deep violets, their forms shifting and morphing as if they were made of light itself. There was something ethereal about them, something that defied the harsh realities of their own existence. The glimpse was fleeting, a mere instant before the rift snapped shut, the humming subsided, and the forest returned to its horrifying normalcy. The intense sensory overload left them reeling, gasping for breath as if they'd been dragged from the depths of the ocean. The cold was gone, replaced by the familiar oppressive humidity. The colors returned to their sickly vibrancy. The ground under their feet was no 14, longer vibrating, but remained soft and yielding. Silence descended, a profound, heavier silence than the one they had known before. A silence filled with the weight of what they had just witnessed. The trees seemed to loom, their branches stretching out as if they were trying to steal what they had seen. It felt as though the very air hung thick with the residue of another reality, another time. Sarah leaned against a tree, her face ashen, her breaths coming in ragged gasps. Her eyes, usually bright and sharp, were wide and unfocused, reflecting the chaos of the fleeting glimpse into another dimension. Grisham, ever the pragmatist, put a hand on her shoulder, his voice low and steady. "What was that?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Sarah shook her head, unable to articulate the disorientation. I don't know," she managed, her voice trembling. "It was another world, a different world. But real." Grisham felt a chilling tremor run down his spine. He'd seen things in his life, horrors beyond the imagination. But this was different. This wasn't just another mutation of nature. This was something else entirely. Something that challenged the very foundations of their understanding of reality. The glimpse of that other world, the advanced technology, the ethereal beings, the pristine sky, raised more questions than it answered. What did it mean? What was the connection between that world and this ravaged reality? Was their world connected to another that was entirely different? They stood there for a long time, the silence broken only by the drip of the viscous fluid from the monstrous leaves. The air around them seemed to hum faintly, a lingering echo of the anomaly. They were both certain that their previous reality was no longer something they could claim to fully understand. The implications of what they had seen were staggering, suggesting a larger, more complex reality than they had ever imagined. A reality that threatened to shatter everything they had ever known. The silence was eventually broken by Sarah. "We have to keep moving," she said, her voice regaining some of its strength. "We have to get to Franklin." Her words held a new urgency, a determination born not just from the desire to reach their destination but also from a need to understand, to find answers to the questions that had been planted deep in their hearts. 15. Their journey continued, but it was different now. The mutated forest, with all its grotesque wonders, seemed less terrifying, less important. The fleeting glimpse of another reality had shifted their perspective, highlighting the inherent strangeness of their world. The grotesque flora and fauna still posed a threat, but now, they felt like mere distractions, obstacles in their quest for answers. They had faced countless terrors, but this was something different, a cosmic puzzle that was infinitely more challenging than any mutant beast or poisonous plant. The next few days were a blur of relentless travel, punctuated by the occasional encounter with the forest's monstrous inhabitants. They pressed on, their bodies battered and bruised, their minds grappling with the implications of the anomaly. The anomaly had planted a seed of doubt, a seed of uncertainty about the nature of their world and their place within it. The world they thought they knew felt suddenly flimsy, unreal, something that could change at any moment. The world they had seen in that glimpse of another reality had been somehow more tangible, more real. They learned to anticipate the anomalies, the subtle shifts in the air, the strange hums that preceded the rifts. They started to recognize patterns, specific locations within the forest, particular times of day, when the probability of an anomaly was increased. Each time a rift appeared, a flash of another reality would appear. Glimpses of impossible architecture and ethereal beings, each glimpse as bewildering and disorienting as the last. These glimpses often contained scenes of impossible technology, beings that seemed to control nature itself with a power that would be considered godlike in their reality. The glimpses were fleeting, barely lasting more than a few seconds, yet they left a lasting imprint on their minds, a lingering sense of wonder and awe mixed with fear and confusion. Their destination, Franklin, seemed further away than ever, not just geographically, but also in terms of the growing gulf between their understanding of the world and the reality it seemed to present. They were survivors, they were fighters, but they were also confronted with a universe that seemed to taunt and play with their sanity. The journey through the mutated forest wasn't merely a physical one. It had become a journey into the unknown, a descent into the heart of a reality that was stranger and more wonderful than they could ever have imagined. The weight of their discovery pressed upon them, but they continued onward, the promise of understanding, of answers, being a driving force that propelled them forward. The fleeting anomaly had been a glimpse of something extraordinary and utterly terrifying, yet it had also given them a glimpse of something else, a hint of hope. The 16. Existence of another world, a world that seemed so profoundly different from their own, suggested that there was more to the universe than this shattered, mutated wasteland. That hope, fragile as it was enough to keep them moving forward, one step at a time, towards the uncertain future that awaited them in Franklin. Their journey was a race against time, a struggle for survival against the twisted reality of their world, and a desperate search for an explanation to this terrifying and amazing cosmic event. 17. Chapter 2. The Road to Franklin. Days bled into each other, a monotonous cycle of relentless travel, punctuated by desperate searches for sustenance. The vibrant, grotesque landscape offered little in the way of edible bounty. The once familiar fruits and vegetables had mutated into grotesque parodies of their former selves, their flesh often toxic, their seeds harboring unknown dangers. Their first encounter with other survivors was less than welcoming. A ragged band of scavengers, their faces gaunt and suspicious, emerged from the ruins of a dilapidated farmhouse, their eyes darting between Grisham's rifle and Sarah's determined stance. They spoke in hushed tones, their words laced with suspicion and a chilling undercurrent of violence. They demanded everything they possessed, their meager rations, their water skins, even the worn-out clothes on their backs. Grisham, ever the pragmatist, weighed his options. A fight would be costly, possibly fatal, but giving up everything would leave them vulnerable, exposed to the harsh realities of the wasteland. Sarah, however, had other ideas. Her gaze, sharp and unwavering, held a certain fierce intensity. She spoke, her voice surprisingly calm but resonating with steel. She suggested a trade, offering her unique knowledge of the terrain, her ability to navigate through the treacherous landscape, as a barter for a portion of their supplies. A cautious negotiation ensued, an uneasy dance between survival and mistrust. In the end, they secured a meager supply of dried berries and a rusty canteen of questionable water in exchange for directions to a hidden spring, and a warning about a particularly dangerous mutated creature that roamed the nearby canyons. The berries tasted like ash and dust, but they were a lifeline, a tangible reminder that even in this ravaged world, survival required more than brute force. It needed cunning, it needed negotiation, it needed a deep understanding of human nature, a nature as wild and unpredictable as the land itself. Their next encounter was strikingly different. An elderly woman, her face etched with the hardships of countless years, emerged from a hidden grove. She was frail, her clothes patched and worn, but her eyes held a spark of resilience. She offered them shelter, a small, dilapidated hut hidden amongst the twisted, gnarled trees. Within its crumbling walls, she shared a meager meal of roasted roots and a surprisingly palatable stew made from foraged fungi. The woman, whose name was Alara, had lived off the land for decades, her knowledge of edible plants and herbs far more extensive than either Sarah or Grisham could have imagined. She shared her secrets, teaching them which plants to avoid, which ones to cautiously consume, and which ones to cultivate. She helped them to identify safe water sources, and to recognize the signs of approaching danger, subtle shifts in the wind, the rustling of mutated leaves, the unnatural silence before a predatory creature stalked them. Elara's wisdom extended beyond the practical aspects of survival. She spoke of the old world, a world both familiar and alien to Sarah and Grisham. She recounted stories of lush green fields, towering skyscrapers, and a world governed by laws and order, a stark contrast to their present reality. Her tales provided a glimpse into a past they could scarcely imagine, a stark reminder of what they had lost. But it also fueled a spark of hope, a hope that a better world, though a distant memory, might once again exist. They stayed with Elara for several days, replenishing their physical strength and, more importantly, their spiritual resolve. Elara's presence was a testament to human resilience, a beacon of hope in the heart of despair. But the harsh realities of their existence soon caught up with them. Their sanctuary was discovered by another band of scavengers, this time, more ruthless, more driven by a primal instinct for survival. A brutal confrontation ensued, a violent clash between desperation and survival. Grisham's rifle, though aged and worn, proved more effective than they could have hoped. Sarah, meanwhile, fought with a ferocity that surprised even herself, her training and instinct transforming her into a weapon of survival. The scavengers, outnumbered and outmatched, eventually fled, leaving behind a grim trail of blood and broken equipment. The violent encounter left a stark reminder of the dark side of humanity, and the cruel reality of a broken world where survival often came at the cost of others. The encounter forced them to move on. Elara's hidden haven was no longer safe. As they packed what little supplies they had left, they resolved to be more cautious, more vigilant. They learned that even the most helpful encounter could leave them vulnerable, as they were now forced to learn new methods to procure supplies, and to remain aware of their surroundings, always on edge for any potential threat, from both the mutated landscape and the hostile human inhabitants. Their journey continued, each day a grueling test of their endurance. They scavenged for scraps in the ruins of abandoned cities, their eyes scanning the debris for anything remotely useful. A rusted can of preserved food, a tattered piece of cloth, a broken tool, each find was a victory, a small step toward survival. They learned to identify the telltale signs of edible plants, even in their mutated forms, and to collect 19 rainwater in makeshift containers. They mastered the art of stealth, moving through the landscape like shadows, avoiding the dangerous creatures and the hostile survivors who roamed this ravaged land. They learned to adapt, to improvise, and to accept the grim realities of their circumstances. Every encounter, every challenge, sharpened their survival skills, transforming them into something more than mere survivors. They became hunters, gatherers, warriors, and masters of their harsh environment. The road to Franklin was far from over, but their resolve, forged in the crucible of hardship and fueled by a glimmer of hope, remained strong. The memory of that other world, the fleeting glimpse of a reality that existed beyond their broken world, continued to drive them forward, one step at a time, toward a future that remained uncertain, yet somehow, undeniably possible. The journey was not merely about reaching Franklin, it was about proving their resilience, their adaptation, and their capacity to survive in a world that sought to destroy them. The quest for survival had become more than a physical struggle, it had become a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity. The wind howled a mournful dirge through the skeletal remains of buildings, whistling through broken windows and echoing in the cavernous spaces where life once thrived. Days of relentless scavenging had yielded little, their meager supplies dwindling to a worrying low. Hope, a fragile ember, threatened to extinguish under the weight of despair. Then, through a gap in a crumbling wall, they saw it, a sign, partially obscured by rust and creeping vines, proclaiming Northwest Technological Research Facility. Sarah's eyes widened. Her mechanical aptitude, honed from years spent tinkering with broken machinery in her pre-apocalypse life, ignited a spark of excitement in her weary soul. This was no ordinary ruin, this was a potential treasure trove. Grisham, ever the cautious pragmatist, approached with his rifle held ready, his eyes scanning the surrounding area for any signs of danger. The facility, or what remained of it, was a testament to the fragility of human ambition in the face of nature's relentless reclamation. Buildings lay half-collapsed, their once gleaming metal surfaces now coated in a thick layer of rust and grime. Twisted metal and shattered glass crunched underfoot, a symphony of decay. Entering the facility was like stepping into a time capsule, a mausoleum of forgotten technology. Dust motes danced in the shafts of sunlight filtering through the fractured ceiling, illuminating rows of rusted machinery, half buried in rubble. The air hung heavy with the smell of damp earth and decaying electronics, a pungent mix-20 that assaulted their senses. Sarah, her eyes shining with a mixture of awe and apprehension, moved through the debris with the practiced ease of someone who knew how to navigate such treacherous terrain. Her fingers, nimble and quick, ran over the surfaces of the machines, tracing their contours, assessing their potential. Grisham, maintaining a watchful perimeter, noticed the subtle shifts in the wind, the rustling of unseen creatures in the shadows beyond the ruined walls. He knew they couldn't afford to linger, that danger could strike at any moment, but the potential rewards outweighed the risks. Sarah, lost in her exploration, was oblivious to the growing sense of unease. She discovered a partially buried data storage unit, its casing cracked and battered, but miraculously intact. With careful movements, she pried it open, revealing rows of data cartridges, their surfaces coated with a fine layer of dust. The sheer volume of information held within was staggering, a legacy of forgotten research and technological innovation. Using a salvage tool, she managed to extract one cartridge. It was miraculously undamaged. She held it carefully, a strange sense of wonder washing over her. This was more than just data. It was a history, a record of a civilization that had vanished, leaving behind this ghostly monument to its achievements. They found a working power generator, though severely damaged, in a separate room. Days turned into nights spent painstakingly cleaning and repairing the generator, carefully piecing together its complex components. Their knowledge was limited, but Sarah's instincts, coupled with the fragmented schematics they found scattered throughout the facility, guided their efforts. Grisham, while lacking Sarah's technical skills, provided crucial support, ensuring their safety and managing their dwindling resources. As they worked, they uncovered more than just technological artifacts. They found notes, research papers, even personal journals detailing the lives and aspirations of the scientists who had once worked within these walls. These fragments of human experience provided a poignant counterpoint to the desolate landscape outside, a reminder of the vibrant lives that had once thrived here, lives as fragile and ultimately as transient as the technology they created. They found evidence of groundbreaking research into sustainable energy, advanced agricultural techniques, and even rudimentary medical technology, all lost to the ravages of time and catastrophe. The information held vast potential. Sarah spent hours meticulously studying the journals, deciphering faded handwriting and deciphering complex diagrams. They discovered protocols for water purification and hydroponic farming, technologies that could drastically improve their chances of survival. They also found schematics 21 for a small portable energy generator that could power their rudimentary tools and even a communication device capable of transmitting over short distances. The data held clues to survival, not just for themselves, but potentially for others who might find their way to Franklin. The generator, once repaired, proved to be a remarkable find. It hummed with a quiet energy, a stark contrast to the silence of the decaying world outside. Using the discovered schematics, they were able to build a small, portable power cell, a significant triumph. They salvaged wires, capacitors, and other components, meticulously cleaning and repairing them. Sarah's nimble fingers, guided by her ingrained understanding of mechanics, worked tirelessly, transforming broken scraps into functional parts. Grisham, meanwhile, maintained a cautious watch, his rifle always close at hand, ready to defend their hard-won progress. The portable power cell, while small, held the potential to change everything. It was a lifeline, a source of power in a world that had largely forgotten the convenience and necessity of electricity. It could power simple tools, allowing them to refine their scavenging efforts. It could aid in their agriculture, even helping them cultivate more food. Most importantly, it provided a sense of hope, a flicker of possibility in the grim reality of their existence. The communication device, less developed, proved more challenging. The damage to the device was far more extensive, its complex circuitry damaged beyond repair. The technology was remarkably advanced, hinting at a sophisticated communications network that had once existed. Though unable to fully restore it, Sarah managed to salvage a few crucial components. She found a way to combine them with other found parts and salvage what amounted to a makeshift radio. Though its range was limited, it could potentially be used to send short signals, offering a distant possibility of contact with other survivors. Days bled into weeks. The facility became their temporary home, a sanctuary amidst the decay. They meticulously documented everything they found, creating a catalog of salvaged parts and information. This catalog, carefully written and illustrated by Sarah, became their most valuable asset, not just for the present but as a potential legacy for the future. They were becoming something more than mere survivors. They were becoming custodians of a forgotten past, entrusted with preserving the remnants of a vanished technology, transforming themselves from scavengers into potential pioneers of a new future. 22. Their work was far from finished. The facility held many more secrets, more opportunities for innovation and improvement. But for now, the portable power cell and their makeshift communication device were victories worth celebrating. They were tangible reminders that even in the desolate wasteland, the ghost of technological progress could be harnessed, providing a flicker of hope in an otherwise hopeless situation. The road to Franklin was still long, but with the energy generator, the makeshift radio and a heart full of determination, Sarah and Grisham pressed on, their steps a little lighter, their resolve a little stronger. Their journey had transformed from mere survival into a quest to reclaim, reinterpret, and even reimagine the technological past. The next leg of their journey, beyond the abandoned research facility, promised more challenges, more dangers and more opportunities to test their limits in this cruel yet compelling world. They were not merely surviving, they were evolving, adapting, and in a profound way, reinventing themselves and their future in the ashes of the old. The silence of the abandoned research facility, once a comforting sanctuary, felt brittle, almost expectant. The rhythmic hum of their salvage generator, a testament to their hard-won progress, seemed to underscore the unnatural stillness. They'd spent the last few weeks meticulously cataloging their finds, painstakingly documenting the remnants of a lost civilization, a task that both soothed and unsettled them. Sarah, ever the pragmatist, saw it as a crucial step toward rebuilding. Grisham, ever the soldier, felt the weight of responsibility for protecting their fragile gains. Their respite was shattered by a guttural yell that ripped through the still air, followed by the splintering of wood and the metallic clang of something heavy hitting the ground. Before they could react, figures emerged from the shadows, ragged, gaunt individuals, their faces obscured by grime and the remnants of what were once masks. They were raiders, scavengers of a different, more brutal sort, their eyes burning with a predatory hunger that sent a chill down Sarah's spine. They were armed with makeshift weapons, rusty pipes, repurposed tools, and even a few scavenged firearms, their movements jerky and unpredictable, a stark contrast to Grisham's controlled precision. The leader, a hulking brute with a scarred face and a crudely fashioned metal prosthetic arm, barked orders in a harsh, gravelly voice. Their numbers were considerable, at least a dozen, swarming toward the facility like vultures to a carcass. Grisham reacted instantly, his hand instinctively going to his rifle. He barked instructions to Sarah, a low urgent tone barely audible over the increasing din. "Get to the generator room. Secure the power cell." 23. Sarah, though her heart pounded a frantic rhythm against her ribs, didn't hesitate. Her years spent scavenging had taught her the value of quick, decisive action. She knew they couldn't fight them head-on. Their numbers were overwhelming. Their strategy had to be one of calculated retreat and strategic advantage. She grabbed the portable power cell, its weight surprisingly comforting in her hands, a tangible symbol of their hard work, a small but significant element of their potential power. Grisham, meanwhile, stood his ground, a lone bastion against the encroaching horde. His military training kicked in, his body moving with an almost balletic grace, his rifle spitting controlled bursts of gunfire that temporarily held the raiders at bay. The sound echoed through the ruined facility, a desperate symphony of defiance against the encroaching darkness. He didn't aim to kill, understanding that ammunition was a precious commodity, and that every shot needed to count. His focus was on creating openings, forcing the raiders to hesitate, buying precious time for Sarah's escape. The raiders, initially surprised by the unexpected resistance, quickly regrouped, their attack becoming more coordinated. They pressed their advance, their makeshift weapons raining blows against the walls and the shattered windows. The air filled with a cacophony of gunfire, the shriek of metal on metal, and the desperate shouts of the raiders. Dust and debris filled the air, obscuring vision and making each movement a calculated risk. Grisham fought with a grim determination, his movements precise and economical, his years of training honed to a razor's edge. Sarah reached the generator room, her heart hammering in her chest. She fumbled with the power cell, securing it in its designated slot within the larger generator, a vital step to protect their creation. She then quickly secured the generator room, barricading the door with anything she could find, scraps of metal, broken machinery, even pieces of the facility's decaying infrastructure. The raiders' cries and the thunder of their assault drew closer. She could hear the pounding of feet and the crashing sounds of the barricade giving way. The generator hummed, a small, defiant sound against the raging assault. She glanced back as the first raider burst into the room. Sarah moved swiftly, dodging the enraged attacker. Her years of experience with machinery allowed her to quickly adapt to using any object around her to disable or evade the attacking raiders. She grabbed a large wrench from the repair bench and swung it with surprising force, catching the raider in the face. Other raiders rushed in, adding to the chaotic melee. Sarah had the speed and agility, knowing that she needed to cause as much disruption and delay as possible to give Grisham a fighting chance. 24. Outside, Grisham fought with a controlled fury, his rifle a deadly extension of his body. He managed to use the terrain to his advantage, forcing the raiders into narrow corridors and utilizing the building's structural weaknesses to his tactical gain. He knew he couldn't hold them off indefinitely, but he needed to buy Sarah the time she needed to get away and secure their hard-won progress. He fought with the calculated efficiency of a seasoned soldier, his every movement a response to the ever-shifting tide of the battle. The sounds of the conflict began to wane, finally giving way to an ominous silence punctuated by sporadic groans. Sarah, bruised but unharmed, waited, listening intently for any sign of Grisham. She could still hear his rifle shots, though they were becoming less frequent. Her pulse pounded with a mix of anxiety and adrenaline. The raiders had sustained casualties, and the survivors retreated, their assault thwarted not by superior firepower, but by cunning and strategic use of the terrain and resources available. Grisham emerged, battered but alive, his rifle held loosely in his hand. He looked exhausted, but a grim satisfaction played on his lips. They had survived. The encounter left them shaken, the silence of the aftermath a stark contrast to the preceding chaos. They surveyed the damage, the wrecked barricade, the shattered windows, the lingering smell of gunpowder and sweat. The psychological impact was significant, the horrors of the encounter leaving deep imprints on their souls. But they had survived. Their teamwork, their shared understanding, their reliance on each other, had proved to be their salvation. Their bond, forged in the crucible of adversity, had become stronger, more profound. The road to Franklin remained treacherous, but they were stronger, more resilient, and more united than ever before. The portable power cell, a symbol of their hopes and dreams, remained intact, a testament to their perseverance, a beacon in the encroaching darkness. The experience, though brutal, had hardened their resolve and sharpened their skills. They would reach Franklin. They had to. The acrid smell of burnt metal and gunpowder hung heavy in the air, a grim testament to their recent battle. The silence that followed was even more unsettling than the preceding chaos, a pregnant pause before the next unknown. Sarah leaned against the mangled remains of the barricade, her body aching, her mind racing. Grisham, equally battered, checked their meager supplies, his movements slow and deliberate. Their initial relief at survival was quickly replaced by a gnawing unease. They were alone, surrounded by miles of desolate wasteland, with dwindling 25 resources and the ever-present threat of more raiders. Just as despair threatened to engulf them, a flicker of movement caught Sarah's eye. Peeking cautiously through a shattered window, she spotted them. A small group of figures huddled around a sputtering fire, a meager distance from the facility. They were unlike the raiders, their clothing less ragged, their demeanor less aggressive. They appeared to be scavenging for something, their movements careful and purposeful. Gathering her courage, Sarah cautiously approached, Grisham covering her from a distance. She emerged from the ruined building, her hands held up in a gesture of peace, her movements slow and deliberate. The firelight illuminated their faces. 3 individuals, 2 women and a man, their expressions guarded but not hostile. One of the women, older, with deep lines etched on her face, held a makeshift spear. The younger woman, her face surprisingly delicate, tended to the fire. The man meticulously sharpened a knife. "We mean you no harm," Sarah called out, her voice hoarse. We need help." Silence followed her words, a tense moment charged with unspoken suspicion. The older woman, her eyes sharp and assessing, slowly lowered her spear. The younger woman looked up, her gaze lingering on Sarah's worn clothing and battered appearance. The man continued his task, his movements precise and focused. It was clear they didn't trust her, and the mutual distrust hung heavy in the air. "We saw the fight," the older woman finally spoke, her voice raspy but surprisingly strong. "You fought well." Sarah nodded, a weary gesture. "We need shelter, and supplies." The older woman exchanged a glance with her companions, a silent conversation that spoke volumes. Their decision, whatever it was swift. The older woman gestured toward a small, makeshift shelter constructed from salvaged materials a short distance from the fire. "Come," she said, her voice still guarded, "but don't think this makes us friends." As they approached the makeshift shelter, Sarah and Grisham saw evidence of their resourcefulness. The structure was remarkably sturdy for being made of salvaged materials. Water was carefully collected in repurposed containers. They had a small garden patch painstakingly cultivated, growing hardy vegetables, a testament to their perseverance and ingenuity. A sense of cautious optimism filled Sarah. This was more 26 than just a temporary respite. It was a glimpse into a different, more sustainable way of surviving. The trio introduced themselves: Elara, the older woman; Maya, the younger woman; and Silas, the man with the knife. They were not raiders, but survivors, skilled scavengers who had chosen a more sustainable, community-based approach to survival. They had been living in this isolated valley for several years, building a small, self-sufficient community. Their existence was precarious, constantly threatened by raiders and the harsh realities of the wasteland. Their survival strategies were fascinating. They meticulously recycled and repurposed everything, from scraps of metal to discarded fabrics. Their knowledge of local plants and animals was extensive. They had learned to cultivate crops in the harsh soil, to trap small animals, and to distill water from the limited sources they had. They lacked firearms but demonstrated a remarkable skill with makeshift weapons and a deep understanding of utilizing the terrain to their advantage. Elara shared their methods of water purification and food preservation, emphasizing the importance of resource management and community cooperation. Silas showed them their advanced trapping techniques, demonstrating the efficiency and ingenuity of their methods. Maya shared their knowledge of local medicinal plants and herbs, demonstrating her skills in creating remedies from readily available materials. The shared meal that followed was simple, a stew made from foraged plants and scavenged meat, but it felt like a feast. In the dim light of the fire, Sarah and Grisham began to understand the resilience and resourcefulness of these survivors. Their way of life was a testament to the human spirit's ability to adapt, to persevere, even in the face of unimaginable hardship. As they talked, Sarah and Grisham realized the complexities of their situation. While these survivors were not raiders, their existence was constantly threatened by them, forcing them to remain hidden, to be cautious and wary of others. Trust was hard-won, and alliances were fragile. The conversation drifted to their reasons for traveling to Franklin. When they spoke of the research facility, of the technological discoveries they had made, Elara's eyes widened. She revealed that she had once been a scientist herself, involved in similar research before the cataclysm. She spoke of a shared dream of rebuilding, of harnessing technology to create a better future. For a moment, the weight of the past and the uncertainties of the future seemed to fade as they shared this common vision. 27. The night passed peacefully, a welcome respite from the constant threat and fear. The next morning, Elara offered them a temporary alliance. They wouldn't be able to join the small community permanently. Their skills and knowledge could be of value in strengthening the community's defenses against future raids. In return, Elara would provide them with vital supplies and guidance. It was a temporary partnership, based on mutual need and shared goals, and it highlighted the unpredictable dynamics of survival in the post-apocalyptic world. The road to Franklin still remained long and arduous, but for now, they had unexpected allies, a beacon of hope amidst the ruins. The temporary alliance wasn't without its challenges. The differences in their approaches to survival created tension. Sarah and Grisham's reliance on technology and military tactics clashed with Elara's emphasis on sustainability and community. Silas's quiet intensity contrasted with Grisham's direct approach, resulting in initial friction. But as they worked together, repairing damaged equipment and strengthening the community's defenses, a grudging respect developed. Their survival depended on cooperation. The work they performed together, shared skills and shared fears, began to mend the fractures in trust. They began to appreciate the complementary nature of their abilities, their individual strengths creating a formidable team. Through these shared experiences, Sarah learned from Elara's deep knowledge of local ecology and sustainable practices. Grisham, in turn, showed Silas his engineering abilities, upgrading some of their traps and defenses with the salvage technology from the facility. Maya's herbal remedies proved invaluable for healing their wounds. The differences in their approaches, once a source of tension, began to become a source of strength. They were united not by a shared history, but by a shared goal: survival. Their collaboration also deepened their understanding of the complexities of human relationships in this harsh environment. The Raiders, initially seen as simply brutal antagonists, were now understood to be a product of desperation and survival. The survivors understood that even in this unforgiving world, alliances could be built, that there was still capacity for cooperation and hope. The shared experience underscored the importance of trust and shared goals, and provided a glimpse of hope amid the devastation. Their journey to Franklin continued, but with a newfound understanding and shared strength and resilience. They were no longer just two individuals struggling to survive, but a small team bound together by a common goal, a shared hope, and the unpredictable alliances forged in the crucible of a broken 28 world. The rhythmic crunch of gravel under their boots was the only sound for a long time, a stark counterpoint to the howling wind that whipped across the desolate landscape. Days bled into each other, marked only by the setting and rising sun, the gradual depletion of their supplies, and the ever-present tension that simmered between them. The temporary alliance, forged in the crucible of shared survival, had proved surprisingly resilient. Grisham, initially skeptical of Elara's methods, had come to grudgingly admire her resourcefulness. Sarah, in turn, had learned to appreciate the value of sustainable practices, a stark contrast to her previous reliance on technology. Even Silas, the quiet observer, had begun to loosen up, sharing snippets of his past, revealing a surprising depth beneath his stoic exterior. Maya, with her gentle touch and her encyclopedic knowledge of medicinal plants, had become something of a mother figure, tending to their wounds both physical and emotional. Their journey had taken them through ravaged farmlands, skeletal remains of buildings clawing at the sky, and roads choked with rusting hulks of vehicles, monuments to a forgotten civilization. The landscape itself seemed to whisper tales of devastation, a constant reminder of the catastrophe that had reshaped their world. They had encountered other survivors, mostly solitary figures scavenging for scraps, their interactions brief, cautious, and always tinged with suspicion. They were a study in silent desperation and wary hope. As they crested a low hill, the wind shifted, carrying with it a new smell, the sharp, acrid tang of decay mixed with the faint, metallic scent of blood. In the distance, a faint haze hung in the air, obscuring the details but promising a sight neither Sarah nor Grisham had anticipated. Franklin, Virginia, once a bustling town, now lay before them. It wasn't the image of a safe haven they'd conjured in their minds. Instead, it was a landscape scarred by time and violence. Buildings, once proud and strong, were now dilapidated skeletons, their windows like vacant eyes staring out at the wastelands. Walls were pockmarked with bullet holes, their surfaces peeling like sunburnt skin. The once vibrant streets were choked with rubble and debris, a macabre tapestry woven from broken glass, twisted metal, and decaying wood. A pall of silence hung over the town. broken only by the mournful sigh of the wind whistling through shattered windows and the occasional screech of a stray crow. The silence itself was unsettling, a heavy blanket that smothered any hint of life or hope. The vibrant town they had read about in the pre-war texts felt like a ghost town, its 29 inhabitants, if any remained, shrouded in an unnerving, almost tangible silence. This was not the place of solace and refuge they were seeking. As they cautiously approached, the details became clearer, more disturbing. The buildings showed signs of recent battles, charred remnants of fires, overturned vehicles, and abandoned makeshift barricades, all suggestive of intense skirmishes. The air itself seemed to vibrate with the lingering energy of conflict, a stark contrast to the eerie calm that had settled over the ruined town. There were glimpses of human activity, a hastily abandoned campsite, a half-eaten meal left on a broken table, clothes strewn haphazardly on the ground, all mute evidence of a recent hurried departure. Sarah felt a knot of dread tighten in her stomach. This wasn't just decay, it was the chilling residue of a recent, violent struggle. This wasn't the promise of sanctuary. It was a stark warning of the dangers that lay ahead. Elara, her sharp eyes scanning the landscape, nodded grimly. "It's worse than we thought," she said, her voice low and serious. "There's been fighting here, recently. And not just between raiders." Her gaze lingered on a partially collapsed wall, revealing a glimpse of sophisticated technology, a damaged laser grid, a remnant of advanced defense systems. This was no simple raider encampment. This was something more complex, more dangerous. Grisham, his face grim, examined a cluster of scorch marks on the pavement, a trail leading towards a large, partially intact building. "Looks like heavy weaponry was used," he muttered, his eyes narrowed. "And a lot of it." His gaze drifted to the distant hills, searching the horizon for any sign of movement or threat. Silas, ever the pragmatist, pointed towards a narrow alleyway. "We need to find shelter," he said, his voice firm. "And we need to scout ahead before we make any moves. We can't be as reckless as we were before. The stakes are too high." His assessment was sharp and accurate. The sense of foreboding pressed down on them, a suffocating weight. The initial relief at finally reaching their destination had quickly evaporated. Franklin was not the safe haven they had hoped for. Instead, it was a battleground, a place of violence and uncertainty, a grim testament to the brutality of the post-apocalyptic world. The subtle clues, the pervasive silence broken by the whispers of the wind, the decaying buildings bearing the marks of intense conflict, all painted a grim picture. It was a setting that screamed of danger and unpredictability, a landscape that foreshadowed the challenges that lay ahead, a testament to the grim reality of their situation. Reaching the outskirts of Franklin, instead of bringing relief, only amplified the sense of unease and danger, setting the stage for a far more perilous struggle than they had anticipated. The road to their goal had just become considerably more treacherous. The air, heavy with the scent of decay and the whispers of recent conflict, spoke volumes. They were not merely entering a ruined town, they were stepping into a war zone. The quiet hum of anticipation turned into a symphony of apprehension, the unspoken questions hanging heavy in the air. Their quest for the research facility was far from over. It had only just begun, its path now fraught with new and unpredictable dangers. The true test of their resilience and resourcefulness was yet to come. Chapter 3, Franklin, a broken town. The first impression of Franklin was a visceral assault on the senses. It wasn't the quiet decay of a town simply abandoned to the elements, it was the echoing silence of a battlefield recently vacated. The air, thick with the smell of burnt metal and decaying organic matter, hung heavy, a tangible reminder of the violence that had consumed this place. Buildings, once proud structures, now stood as skeletal remains, their facades scarred with bullet holes and graffiti, a testament to desperate struggles and fleeting acts of defiance. Windows were vacant, dark eyes staring out at the bleak landscape, mirroring the hollowed-out hope of those who might have once called this place home. The streets, once arteries of bustling life, were now choked with rubble and debris, a chaotic tapestry woven from broken glass, twisted metal, and the remnants of shattered lives. Overturned vehicles, their metal skins rusted and pitted, lay scattered like fallen soldiers, their silent forms adding to the palpable sense of loss and despair. Even the ground beneath their feet seemed to bear the weight of the past, the dust clinging to their boots a fine powder of shattered dreams. Yet, amidst the ruins, flickers of a different reality emerged, hinting at a more complex story than simple devastation. Sections of surprisingly intact walls, adorned with what appeared to be remnants of advanced energy shielding, hinted at a level of technology far exceeding anything they had encountered before the cataclysm. The sophistication of these remnants suggested that Franklin had not merely been overrun, it had been a contested zone, a battleground fought with weaponry and defenses that defied their understanding of what remained in this fractured world. As they navigated the treacherous paths, avoiding jagged shards of glass and precarious piles of rubble, they encountered pockets of relative order amidst the chaos. A small, almost pristine garden, tended with surprising care, pushed defiantly through the cracked pavement. Flowers, resilient and vibrant, bloomed amidst the decay, a defiant act of nature reclaiming its space. Nearby, a small workshop, miraculously preserved, contained a collection of tools and spare parts, carefully organized and clearly in use until very recently. The presence of these ordered spaces hinted at the existence of survivors, individuals or groups who had somehow managed to carve out a niche amidst the ruins, maintaining a semblance of normalcy within the extraordinary circumstances. 32. They found evidence of recent activity, a hastily abandoned meal, still sitting on a makeshift table crafted from salvaged wood, a child's drawing, crudely scrawled on a piece of sheet metal, depicting a sun smiling over a ravaged landscape, a set of well-worn boots, their owner clearly having fled in haste, leaving behind a life that must have been hard enough to justify abandonment. These scattered pieces of a broken life provided glimpses into the resilience of the human spirit, a testament to the enduring strength of those who had managed to survive in this wasteland. Further exploration revealed more unsettling clues. The scorch marks on the pavement, meticulously documented by Grisham, indicated the use of heavy weaponry, far more advanced than anything the raiders possessed. Elara, her expertise in advanced technology confirmed by the examination of damaged components of the energy shielding, concluded that this was no simple raid. This was a clash between forces equipped with sophisticated technology. The sheer intensity of the conflict that had ravaged Franklin left them speechless. The sheer scale of destruction implied a prolonged fight, not a mere clash between smaller gangs. The sheer power indicated the advanced weapons involved. They discovered further signs of technological prowess. A partially intact automated defense system, embedded within the ruins of a larger building, hinted at a past characterized by technological advancement that far exceeded their initial assumptions. The system, while heavily damaged, still held promising traces of functioning circuits, evidence of a technological sophistication that could potentially offer solutions to their current predicament. This technology might hold the key to unlocking further resources or even provide a path to the research facility they were desperately seeking. Its potential for improving their conditions overshadowed the obvious risks associated with its presence. As they ventured deeper into the town, they encountered signs of a surprisingly organized community within the ruins. Small, makeshift shelters, constructed with remarkable skill from salvaged materials, dotted the landscape, providing evidence of a small community's existence. These shelters were not merely temporary accommodations, they were carefully planned and executed, displaying an ingenuity born of necessity. The way in which basic needs were met, such as water collection and food preservation, showed a high level of communal organization and adaptation. These small hints of resilience, though fragile, were a beacon of hope in a sea of despair, raising the possibility of collaboration or at least a better understanding of the complex dynamics of Franklin. 33. Sarah, ever the historian, noticed intricate carvings etched into the remnants of old buildings, symbols and figures that seemed to hint at a unique local history and culture, preceding the catastrophe. These carvings, preserved against the onslaught of time and conflict, offered a glimpse into the rich tapestry of life that had once thrived in this now desolate place, underscoring the human cost of the disaster and strengthening the determination to seek a place where such a life would not be threatened. Their presence was a stark contrast to the bleak reality of the present, serving as both a poignant reminder of the past and a source of quiet inspiration. They discovered a network of underground tunnels, likely built as shelters or service corridors during the town's pre-apocalyptic era, now used as pathways and hiding places by the remaining inhabitants. The tunnels provided a sense of security, protecting inhabitants from the elements and potentially from predators. They also served as evidence of forward thinking and community planning even before the catastrophic event. This showed a level of planning and foresight that contrasted sharply with the apparent lack of planning evident in some of the buildings above ground. This hinted at layers of life and strategies for survival, far beyond their initial impression of a simple ruined town. The town, far from being a uniform expanse of rubble, was a complex mosaic of destruction and resilience. Pockets of organized life coexisted alongside areas of devastation. This suggested a history rich in both turmoil and adaptation, raising questions about the forces that had shaped Franklin into its current state. The contrast between the advanced technology and the basic shelters only deepened the mystery, adding to the complexity of the environment they found themselves in. The weight of their discovery pressed heavily upon them. Franklin was not merely a ruined town. It was a battlefield, a graveyard, and a testament to the survival of the human spirit, all at once. The intricate mix of destruction, advancement, and resilience created a puzzle of enormous scope, offering both peril and potential. The journey had just become infinitely more complex and uncertain. The path forward, once seemingly clear, was now a labyrinth of choices, each fraught with its own unique set of challenges and rewards. Their initial aim remained the research facility, but the town of Franklin now presented an added dimension to their journey, adding another layer of complexity to the challenges that lay ahead. The hope of finding sanctuary had been replaced by a grim determination to navigate this complex and dangerous new environment. The road ahead was not just treacherous, it was steeped in an enigma that promised both immense danger and unexpected opportunities. 34. The first person they encountered wasn't lurking in the shadows, but tending a small patch of surprisingly vibrant sunflowers pushing through the cracked pavement near a miraculously preserved workshop. An elderly woman, her face a roadmap of wrinkles etched by time and hardship, straightened, a rusty trowel clutched in her calloused hand. Her eyes, though clouded with age, held a spark of defiance that mirrored the tenacious sunflowers themselves. She wore patched clothes, but her posture held a quiet dignity, a testament to a life lived with unwavering resilience. "Well now," she rasped, her voice a low, gravelly whisper that carried surprisingly well over the silence. "Ain't seen strangers in Franklin for a long time. You lost?" Elara, ever cautious, stepped forward. "We're looking for the old research facility," she replied, her voice calm and measured. "We heard it might be somewhere around here." The woman chuckled, a dry, rustling sound. "Heard a lot of things in Franklin, honey. Most of 'em ain't true. The facility, that's a story for another day, maybe. First, tell me what brings you to this graveyard." They explained their journey, carefully choosing their words, omitting details about their past that might put them at risk. The woman listened intently, her gaze unwavering. As Elara spoke of their journey, and their search for resources and a place of sanctuary, the woman's expression slowly shifted. A flicker of understanding, mixed with a hint of guarded hope, replaced the initial skepticism. The woman introduced herself as Martha, and although she spoke little about her past, she revealed enough to paint a stark portrait of survival. She had lived in Franklin before the cataclysm, working as a mechanic at a local garage, a skill that proved invaluable in the post-apocalyptic world. She'd seen the fighting, the fire, the fleeing. She'd lost her husband, her son, her whole world. But she had survived. She had chosen to stay, to rebuild, to tend her garden. "This ain't a town anymore," she said, gesturing around at the ruins. "It's a collection of ghosts and the stubborn few who won't leave their dead behind." Martha led them deeper into the town, introducing them to other survivors. Each encounter revealed a different facet of life in Franklin, a mosaic of resilience and hardship woven together by the shared trauma of the past and the fragile hope for the future. 35. They met Silas, a grizzled old man with a haunted look in his eyes. He was a former soldier, his skills in demolition and weaponry proving vital for the town's defense. Silas revealed much about the different factions and dangers present in the area, and his stories of those who had fallen made them realize the fragility of their own position. Then there was Anya, a young woman with fiery red hair and eyes that held a fierce intelligence. She was a skilled engineer, her knowledge of salvage technology proving instrumental in maintaining what little infrastructure remained within the community. Anya had an incredible strength, but this came from years spent facing harsh conditions. They met a family unit too, Thomas and Evelyn, parents of 2 young children and their extended family. The children, scarred by war and deprivation, displayed both resilience and a playful innocence that was a stark contrast to the grim surroundings. The children, with their unyielding hope and resilience, showed the ability of the human spirit to persist even in the darkest times. Their father, Thomas, revealed a hidden depth, having created a sanctuary for his children within the chaos. Evelyn, though her heart ached with loss, showed a quiet courage and strength that belied her delicate appearance. Each story was a testament to the strength of the human spirit, a narrative of survival against all odds. The individuals were connected through a shared sense of community and the unwavering determination to rebuild their lives amidst the ruins. The encounters also revealed the underlying social structures and conflicts within the community. There was a tension between those who favored a more isolationist approach, seeking to keep a low profile and avoid further conflict, and those who believed in actively seeking resources and rebuilding. Martha and Silas were firm believers in a cautious approach, content to exist within the confines of their hidden communities. Anya, on the other hand, believed in venturing out, in finding resources, and improving their situation. The family, desperately trying to raise their children, wanted both security and the potential opportunities available beyond their immediate surroundings. This led to a deeper understanding of the power dynamics within Franklin. The community was not a unified whole, but a complex interplay of personalities, ambitions, and competing survival strategies. 36. The more they learned, the more they realized that the search for the research facility was only one part of a much larger puzzle. Their interaction with the townsfolk introduced a new layer of complexity to their mission, intertwining their personal goals with the fate of the fragile community that had taken root amidst the ruins. Later, during a shared meal of salvaged rations and foraged vegetables around a crackling fire in a relatively intact section of the town square, Elara tried to gently approach the subject of the research facility once more. She spoke of their quest, their hopes for medical supplies and technology. Martha, her gaze distant, stared into the flames. "That place, it's more than just a facility," she finally said, her voice barely a whisper. "It's a reminder of what we lost, of what we might find again, if we're lucky." Silas, his eyes hardened by years of conflict, added, "But it's also a source of danger. There are others out there, searching for the same thing. There are factions who want to control what's left. The facility attracts trouble, a beacon calling to those who would exploit its power for their own gain." Anya, her sharp gaze focused on Elara, interrupted. "If you are planning to risk entering the research facility, it's a mission you must approach very cautiously. We need to fully understand what it is that you are seeking, and what is at stake. Our survival depends on understanding our environment, which includes the dangers that are present. The dangers extend beyond the obvious. We need to work together if we are to survive. A partnership between us could benefit us all." The conversation turned into a debate about the potential risks and rewards of seeking out the research facility, as well as the potential alliances that could develop. Each voice contributed to a complex tapestry of opinions, highlighting the delicate balance between hope and survival, and the complexities of rebuilding in a fractured world. The decision on how to move forward was far from simple. It involved weighing the potential benefits against the very real dangers presented by the ruins of Franklin and the people who inhabit them. The simple search for a research facility had evolved into something far more intricate, a search for survival within a community wrestling with its own past and future. The fate of the research facility and the fate of the people of Franklin were now intertwined. Their future survival was now in the balance. 37. The fire crackled, spitting embers into the night. The scent of wood smoke mingled with the earthy aroma of cooked vegetables, a stark contrast to the pervasive smell of decay that clung to Franklin like a shroud. Grisham sat silently, nursing a lukewarm cup of something that vaguely resembled coffee, his gaze fixed on the flames. The discussion around him, a low hum of voices debating resource allocation and the ever-present threat of raiders, faded into the background. His mind was miles away, wrestling with a decision that weighed heavier than any pack he'd ever carried. Anya, her red hair catching the firelight, had placed a hand on his arm earlier, her touch surprisingly gentle. "We need you, Grisham," she'd said, her voice low and serious. "Your experience, it's invaluable. Silas can fight, but he needs someone to organize, to lead." Silas, his face etched with the lines of 1,000 battles, had nodded in agreement, a rare show of deference. Even Martha, usually reticent, had offered a rare, almost hopeful smile. The offer had come as a blunt instrument, unceremoniously dropped into the midst of their meal. Sheriff, they called it. The title hung in the air, heavy with the weight of unspoken responsibilities and the grim reality of Franklin's situation. It wasn't a ceremonial position, a symbol of authority in a functioning society. It was a life-or-death necessity, a role demanding leadership, judgment, and the willingness to face danger head-on. A role he was absolutely unqualified for, and yet, he'd spent years avoiding responsibility, burying himself in the solitude of the wilderness, finding a perverse comfort in the isolation. The war had left him scarred, not just physically but emotionally. The memories, the ghosts of fallen comrades, clung to him like a second skin. He craved peace, a quiet life far removed from the violence and chaos he'd witnessed. But the quiet life was a fantasy, an unattainable dream in the ravaged landscape of post-apocalyptic America. Franklin, with its broken buildings, its meager resources, its vulnerable inhabitants, was a stark reminder of that harsh truth. He saw it in the weary eyes of Thomas, the quiet stoicism of Evelyn, the haunted look of Silas, and the fierce determination in Anya's gaze. He saw it in the children's faces, a fragile innocence clinging desperately to the edges of a brutal reality. They needed help, they needed protection. And he, with his military training, his experience in survival, his hard-won knowledge of strategy and combat, was perhaps the only one who could provide it. 38. The irony wasn't lost on him. He, a man who dedicated his life to escaping the weight of responsibility, was now being asked to shoulder the burden of an entire community. It felt like a cruel joke, A twisted twist of fate that refused to let him find the peace he so desperately craved. He glanced at Alara, her face illuminated by the flickering firelight. She remained silent, her expression unreadable. She hadn't voiced her opinion on the matter, but he knew her keen intelligence was weighing the implications. He understood the inherent risks, the potential consequences of accepting such a heavy responsibility. He also knew that he possessed specific skills and experience that could aid in the survival of this community. He was capable of strategizing defense against threats. His strategic leadership could be invaluable to this desperate community. The thought of them struggling without his help gnawed at his conscience. He had a duty to help, even if that duty was a crushing weight upon his shoulders. The night deepened, the flames dwindling to embers. The silence around the fire was punctuated only by the occasional sigh of the wind whispering through the ruins of Franklin. The weight of his decision pressed down on him, suffocating. He thought of the quiet life he'd envisioned, a life away from the constant threat of violence, a life where he could finally find solace and healing. Was that life now an impossible dream? Could he truly walk away from these people, from their desperate hope clinging to the ruins of their world? He wasn't a hero. He was a soldier, a survivor, a man burdened by the past and haunted by his experiences. But he wasn't heartless. He wasn't immune to the suffering around him. The possibility of failure loomed large. Could he truly keep them safe? Could he protect them from the dangers lurking in the shadows of Franklin, and from the threats that lay beyond its crumbling walls? The answer was uncertain. Franklin itself was a battlefield. The threats weren't only external, such as external raiders or hostile groups. There was also the internal challenge. The internal challenge was managing the internal conflicts, resolving disputes, and maintaining the equilibrium in a shattered society. Yet, even with the chilling possibilities of failure, he could not deny the duty that whispered in his heart. The survivors of Franklin needed help. They needed guidance. They needed someone with the experience to guide them through the dark times. He might not be a hero, but he could be their shield, their protector. He could be their sheriff. The weight of the decision remained, heavy and suffocating. Yet, in the cold 39, ashes of the dying fire, a flicker of resolve ignited within him. He looked up at the inky sky, and a grim determination set into his face. The next morning, under the pale light of the post-apocalyptic sun, Grisham stood before the small gathering of Franklin's residents. His answer was simple, a quiet affirmation of a decision that would forever alter his life, and theirs. "Yes," he said, his voice low but firm. "I'll be your sheriff." The weight on his shoulders was immense, but now, it was a weight he would bear with a newfound purpose. His quiet life was over. The fight had begun. The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity. Grisham, with his inherent leadership skills and his strategic understanding of tactical combat, quickly proved himself indispensable. He organized patrols, improved the rudimentary defenses, and established a system of communication and cooperation. His military background was essential in establishing order and a sense of security. His approach was systematic. He began with identifying and mapping resources, establishing a rotational system for patrols, and initiating a community-wide training schedule. He instituted a strict but fair system of justice, balancing mercy with the need for order. He learned to listen, to understand the complex dynamics within the community, and to navigate the delicate balance between differing viewpoints. He worked with Anya to improve their technological capabilities, using his knowledge of military technology to enhance their defenses and improve their access to critical supplies. He worked with Martha, learning from her experience in agriculture and resource management. He collaborated with Silas, relying on the old soldier's tactical experience to safeguard the community's resources. He discovered that his role as sheriff was not simply about maintaining order. It was also about rebuilding trust, fostering hope, and helping the community heal from the trauma of the past. He found himself unexpectedly drawn to the responsibility. He found that leadership wasn't about control, but about understanding the needs of the people and empowering them to rebuild their lives. The weight of his decision, initially oppressive, had somehow transformed into a sense of purpose, a reason to face the challenges ahead. The community, in turn, responded to his efforts. Their renewed sense of security fostered collaboration and strengthened their resolve. His personal journey of healing started to parallel the rebuilding of Franklin. He found a new purpose and a renewed sense of self in his role as sheriff. He was no longer merely surviving. He was thriving, helping his community survive and creating something meaningful amidst the destruction. The quiet life he'd longed for remained 40, a distant dream, but in its place was a purpose that fulfilled him in unexpected ways. The fight for Franklin, and for his own redemption, had only just begun. The journey was far from over, yet a fragile sense of hope was beginning to take root amidst the ruins. The rhythmic clang of metal on metal punctuated the morning air, a counterpoint to the chirping of strangely resilient sparrows amongst the skeletal remains of buildings. Sarah, her grease-stained hands working with practiced efficiency, tightened a bolt on a makeshift generator. Sparks flew, momentarily illuminating her face, etched with a grim determination that belied her youthful appearance. She wasn't just fixing a machine. She was repairing a thread in the tattered fabric of Franklin, one small act of defiance against the overwhelming decay that surrounded them. Her arrival in Franklin had been as chaotic as the town itself. She'd arrived alone, clutching a battered toolbox and a haunted look in her eyes that matched the desolation of the landscape. She had little to offer beyond a set of specialized skills she'd acquired before the world ended, skills that, in this ravaged land, were surprisingly valuable. She was a tinkerer, a tech whiz, a survivor who found solace and purpose in the intricate workings of technology. She had been a mechanic before the war, and her knowledge of engines, electronics, and basic engineering was proving invaluable. Initially, she'd kept to herself, a solitary figure in the town's periphery, her workshop nestled within the shadow of a collapsed factory building. She spoke little, preferring the company of her tools and the hum of machinery to the wary glances and hushed whispers of the other survivors. She was quiet, almost shy, but her hands spoke volumes, translating her innate understanding of mechanics into tangible improvements for the community. She worked tirelessly, her fingers tracing the contours of broken circuits and rusted engines with an almost reverent touch. Slowly, however, her presence began to impact the town. Grisham, now the reluctant sheriff, had initially observed her from a distance, noting her skill and dedication. He saw the subtle shift in the town's fortunes as she repaired broken water pumps, resurrected antiquated communication systems, and even managed to get a handful of battered vehicles running again. The generators she meticulously rebuilt provided a crucial source of power, allowing them to improve their lighting and expand their limited access to water purification. The quiet, unassuming mechanic was transforming their survival strategy. 41. One day, Silas, the grizzled veteran, approached her workshop, his usual gruff demeanor softened by a hesitant respect. He needed help repairing a vital component of their rudimentary defense system, a network of tripwires and alarms designed to alert them to approaching raiders. He needed someone who understood electronics, someone who could help them adapt to the changing landscape, and Sarah was the only one who could do it. Their collaboration was initially awkward, a clash of generations and approaches. Silas, steeped in the traditions of guerrilla warfare, found Sarah's technological solutions somewhat alien. Sarah, accustomed to precision and efficiency, was frustrated by Silas's improvisational methods. However, they slowly found common ground, learning from each other's expertise. Silas's practical field experience and Sarah's mechanical knowledge combined to create solutions far superior to anything they could have accomplished individually. Their collaboration marked a turning point for Sarah. It was the beginning of her integration into the Franklin community, the acceptance of her worth, and the acknowledgement of her contribution to their shared struggle for survival. It showed the others that even in this broken world, technology still held the key to progress, the means to create a better future amidst the ruins of the old. Word of Sarah's skills spread, attracting other survivors, some skilled in mechanics, some with valuable knowledge in other fields who wanted to learn. Her workshop transformed into a hub of collaborative engineering and problem-solving. She mentored others, sharing her knowledge and encouraging their creativity. She showed them how to repurpose salvaged materials, to adapt technology from different eras, to make something useful from the scraps of a fallen world. Her mentorship wasn't just about teaching, it was about building hope, showing them that even amidst the decay, they could create, they could build, they could overcome. Her influence extended beyond the practical realm. She inspired a sense of hope within the community, a belief that their struggle was not futile. Her quiet perseverance in the face of adversity became a symbol of resilience for the other survivors. She didn't preach, she simply worked. She didn't offer empty promises. She delivered tangible results. She showed them that even in the face of despair, human ingenuity could still shine, and that technology, even rudimentary technology, could be their salvation. She wasn't merely repairing machines. She was repairing spirits, restoring faith in a better future. 42. Her work also began to affect the town's defenses. Sarah's innovations weren't just about improving everyday life, they were about increasing their security. She designed and implemented enhanced alarm systems, improved their lighting, and created a system for using salvaged military technology for their protection. She became an integral part of the town's defense, her expertise as crucial as Silas's combat experience. Her quiet strength, her methodical approach to problem-solving, and her unwavering focus on practical results transformed her into a pillar of the community, and a testament to the power of resilience. As Franklin started to slowly rebuild, so did Sarah. The haunted look in her eyes began to soften, replaced by a steely determination, tempered with a newfound sense of purpose. The grease stains on her hands were a badge of honor, a testament to her tireless work, and to her essential contribution to Franklin's survival. She was no longer just a survivor. She was an integral part of the community, a vital link in their chain of resilience, a quiet force for progress in a world consumed by decay. She had transformed from a solitary figure in the shadows into a beacon of hope and ingenuity, proving that even in the darkest of times, human ingenuity and resilience could create a place to rebuild, a place to live, a place to hope for something more. Her quiet, determined efforts were, in their own way, as powerful and impactful as the loudest declarations of defiance. Her transformation was complete. She had found her place, and in doing so, had helped find a place for Franklin to rise again. The fragile peace in Franklin, painstakingly pieced together from the rubble of the old world, began to unravel like a fraying rope. The initial euphoria of repaired generators and functioning water pumps gave way to the harsh realities of resource scarcity and simmering tensions. The repaired vehicles, once symbols of progress, now became focal points of disagreement over fuel allocation, sparking arguments amongst the survivors, each clinging to their desperate need for transportation and security. Grisham, the reluctant sheriff, found himself increasingly burdened, navigating the treacherous waters of community leadership with the weary patience of a man who had seen too much already. His authority, once passively accepted, now faced open challenges. Whispers of discontent transformed into outright accusations. Accusations of favoritism in the distribution of supplies, of neglecting certain sections of the town, and even of secretly hoarding precious resources began to spread like wildfire through the community, poisoning relationships and creating deep divisions. Sarah, despite her pivotal role in the town's revival, wasn't immune to the growing animosity. Her workshop, once a symbol of hope, became a target of suspicion. Whispers suggesting 43, that she favored certain individuals with access to her advanced technology and knowledge. The internal strife was exacerbated by external threats. The raiders, previously a distant menace, began to probe the town's defenses with increasing audacity. Smaller skirmishes became more frequent, testing the efficacy of Sarah's improved alarm systems and Silas's guerrilla tactics. The raiders were no longer disorganized bands of scavengers. They were becoming better organized, more strategic, and noticeably more heavily armed. Intelligence gleaned from captured raiders suggested the emergence of a larger, more powerful group, one with a structured command and a clear objective: the systematic plunder of surviving settlements. Their attacks were less opportunistic and more calculated, aiming to exploit weaknesses in Franklin's defenses. This shift in tactics forced a reassessment of Franklin's security measures, adding another layer of stress to the already burdened community. The dwindling food supply added another layer to the complex tapestry of challenges. The initial stores, salvaged from abandoned buildings, were running dangerously low. The meager harvest from their rudimentary gardens couldn't compensate for the growing population and increasing demand. Hunger gnawed at the edges of their resilience, fueling resentment and exacerbating the internal conflicts. Grisham found himself caught between appeasing the desperate demands of his community and maintaining order. He had to balance the needs of the many against the growing distrust among them. The easy camaraderie of their shared struggle was eroding under the pressure of starvation and fear. The scarcity of resources extended beyond food. Fuel, essential for the few functioning vehicles, was becoming a precious commodity, and water, though purified, remained a limited resource. Control over these essentials became a source of power, generating further friction and suspicion within the community. Accusations of theft and sabotage became more frequent, and the atmosphere in Franklin became thick with tension, the peace replaced by an almost palpable sense of impending doom. Rumors of other settlements collapsing under similar pressures added to the collective anxiety, painting a grim picture of their uncertain future. Sarah, despite her technological prowess, found herself increasingly isolated. Her technical skills, once lauded, were now viewed with suspicion by some. The fact that she possessed the knowledge to repair and adapt technology, and even the ability to potentially create better systems, caused some to see her as a threat. They feared her expertise, fearing she might be hoarding knowledge, not sharing her skills equally. It 44 was a cruel irony. The woman who had single-handedly revived their hope was now becoming a symbol of their fears and anxieties. Silas, her ally and mentor in the earlier days of Franklin's rebuilding, found himself caught in the middle. He understood the value of Sarah's skills and her commitment to the community, but he also sensed the undercurrent of suspicion and distrust building around her. He struggled to bridge the growing chasm between her and the community, caught between his loyalty to Sarah and his responsibility to maintain order. His own gruff demeanor, once a shield against vulnerability, now seemed inadequate to address the rising tide of fear and animosity. He knew that if the internal divisions weren't resolved, it wouldn't matter how strong their external defenses were, the town would crumble from within. The situation became particularly dire when a group of survivors, driven by desperation and hunger, attempted to seize control of the remaining fuel supply. This act of rebellion, though quickly quelled by Silas and Grisham, exposed the fragility of their social fabric. It highlighted the deep-seated resentment simmering beneath the surface of their shared struggle. The incident became a stark reminder of the precarious balance between cooperation and conflict, between survival and self-destruction. It became clear that Grisham's authority was wavering and the community's trust was rapidly eroding. The peace was merely a thin veneer, covering a maelstrom of distrust and despair. Grisham knew he had to act decisively. He understood that the immediate threat of starvation and external attacks could be addressed, but the deeper issue of internal discord threatened to destroy Franklin from within. He needed to find a way to restore trust, to unify the community, and to re-establish a sense of shared purpose. He knew he couldn't do it alone. He needed Sarah's skill, Silas's experience, and the cooperation of the entire community. But convincing a divided and fearful community to unite under a common goal when hunger and suspicion gnawed at their hearts seemed an almost impossible task. The future of Franklin hung precariously in the balance, its fate determined not by external forces, but by the ability of its inhabitants to overcome their internal conflicts and find a way to work together. The weight of responsibility pressed heavily on Grisham's shoulders. He was a man who had survived the apocalypse, witnessed unimaginable horrors, and emerged with a deep understanding of human resilience. But even his resilience was being tested by this new, insidious threat, the crumbling of the very community he had fought so 45. Hard to build. He knew that the coming days would be critical, that the decisions he made would determine whether Franklin would rise again, or become another footnote in the grim history of the fallen world. He had to act quickly, decisively, and above all, he had to find a way to restore faith in their shared future. The future of Franklin, he realized, was not merely a matter of survival, but of unity, hope, and a renewed commitment to rebuilding a better world from the ashes of the old. And that task, he knew, would be harder than anything he had faced before. The quiet strength that had been the hallmark of the town's slow resurgence was fading, replaced by a chilling silence of uncertainty and simmering resentment. His town, his home, was on the brink of collapse, its future hanging by the thread of unity. The challenge was monumental, the path ahead uncertain, but Grisham, despite the overwhelming odds, knew he had to try. 46. Chapter 4. Building a Future. Shattered windows, overturned carts, and the lingering smell of burnt wood spoke volumes about the fragility of their hard-won peace. Grisham, his face etched with exhaustion, surveyed the scene from the makeshift town hall, a repurposed warehouse with bullet holes still marring its walls. He rubbed his tired eyes, the weight of his responsibility pressing down on him like a physical burden. The uprising over the fuel reserves had been quelled, but the underlying tensions remained, a simmering pot about to boil over. He knew he needed to act, and act quickly. A temporary solution wouldn't suffice. This was about rebuilding trust, establishing a sense of fairness, and reigniting the spirit of cooperation that had initially brought Franklin back from the brink. But how? The solutions that had worked before, simple acts of fairness in distributing food and water, were no longer enough. The needs were greater, the desperation more acute. The whispers of discontent had solidified into accusations, fueled by hunger and fear. He'd heard the whispers, accusations of favoritism, of hoarding, of corruption. Even his own integrity was being questioned. A bitter pill to swallow. He summoned Sarah and Silas to the warehouse. Sarah, her usually bright eyes clouded with weariness, arrived first. Her usually meticulous workshop was in disarray, a reflection of the turmoil within the community. She'd managed to repair the damaged alarm system, but the damage to her reputation was more significant, a slow burn threatening to consume her. Grisham, she began, her voice tight, we need to address this head-on. The fuel incident wasn't just about fuel. It's about the lack of trust, the growing inequality. People are starving, Grisham. Silas, his face grim and set, followed her. His usual stoicism felt strained, his usual calm replaced with a barely contained anger. He'd spent the night patching up the wounded, the victims of the clash, mostly young men driven to desperate acts by hunger. He looked at Grisham, his eyes filled with a heavy sadness. It's not just hunger, Sheriff. It's the fear. Fear of the future, fear of each other. Grisham nodded, understanding their concerns. I know, he said, his voice rough. We need a system, a transparent system, for allocating resources. Something fair, something everyone can see as fair. The words felt inadequate, the task ahead seemed insurmountable. But he had to try. 47. The three of them spent hours in the warehouse, hashing out a plan. They needed a council, a representative body from each section of Franklin, to oversee the distribution of resources. Sarah suggested using her salvaged computers and salvaged communication devices to create a centralized database, tracking supplies and needs. This would ensure transparency, offering a real-time view of what was available and where it was most needed. Silas, ever practical, focused on security, outlining patrols and establishing early warning systems to deter future attacks. The council idea was met with initial resistance. Some were wary of relinquishing control. Others remained suspicious of any form of authority. Grisham, however, persisted, appealing to their sense of shared survival and their common desire for security and stability. He emphasized the need for collective action, for cooperation and compromise if they were to survive. Sarah's database proved to be a turning point. The raw data, the stark reality of their limited resources, was a sobering reminder of their precarious situation. It also unveiled unexpected disparities. The initial distribution of supplies, however well-intentioned, had been flawed, leading to inequities that fueled resentment. The council, initially fraught with disagreement and suspicion, slowly began to function. The shared task of managing their dwindling resources, coupled with the transparent database, fostered a sense of shared responsibility. The debates were often heated, but they led to more equitable distribution of food, water, and fuel. Compromise became a necessity, as did clear communication. Silas's improved security measures also made a tangible difference. The enhanced alarm system, supplemented by better coordinated patrols, deterred further attacks. The raiders, while still a threat, became less brazen, less opportunistic in their assaults. The next few weeks were a grueling test of their resolve. The council had its share of challenges, navigating disagreements, appeasing grievances, and continually battling the ingrained distrust. But the system, despite its imperfections, worked. It provided a framework for collaboration, a path toward stability. The tangible improvements, more predictable food supplies, better security, and a fairer allocation of resources, gradually began to rebuild trust. The atmosphere in Franklin, though still tense, shifted from a palpable sense of impending doom to a cautious optimism. The whispers of discontent gradually subsided, replaced by a tentative hope for a brighter future. 48. However, even with the new council and a more equitable distribution system, the underlying anxieties remained. The threat of the larger raider group persisted, a constant reminder of the precariousness of their situation. The dwindling resources, despite careful management, still caused concern and prompted careful rationing. Grisham knew this fragile peace could easily shatter again. The scars from the fuel riot ran deep. The work of rebuilding trust and restoring order was far from over. But there was a glimmer of hope, a spark of renewed community spirit, fueled by shared hardship and a newly forged sense of collective responsibility. The road ahead remained long and arduous, but for the first time in months, a sense of collective purpose began to take hold in Franklin, a fragile but real foundation for a future built not on fear and suspicion, but on cooperation and hope. Their battles for survival were far from over, but the fight was no longer solely against the external forces that threatened them. It was a fight for unity and collective resilience, a fight that, for now, they seemed determined to win. The rhythmic clatter of salvaged metal against metal filled Sarah's makeshift workshop, a counterpoint to the hushed whispers of hope that had begun to permeate Franklin. Gone was the chaotic disarray of the previous week. In its place was a carefully orchestrated symphony of repair and innovation. Sarah, her face smudged with grease and determination, worked tirelessly, her fingers flying across the keyboard of a scavenged laptop, its screen flickering with lines of code. She wasn't just repairing old technology, she was breathing new life into it, adapting it to the harsh realities of their post-apocalyptic world. Her initial focus had been on the community database, a vital tool for tracking resources and ensuring fair distribution. The system, built from scavenged server components and jury-rigged communication lines, was remarkably robust. It utilized a combination of solar power and a hand-cranked generator, ensuring its operation even during power outages. Sarah had cleverly incorporated a fail-safe system that automatically backed up the data onto multiple drives, preventing any catastrophic loss of information. The database not only tracked food, water, and fuel, but also medical supplies, tools, and even seeds for planting. Its impact was immediate and profound. The transparency it offered dismantled the suspicions that had fueled the riot, creating a shared understanding of their collective limitations. But Sarah's ingenuity didn't stop at the database. She had also been working on improving the town's communication system. Utilizing salvaged walkie-talkies and a network of strategically placed antennas, she created a rudimentary but effective 49 communication network that spanned the entire settlement. This enabled real-time communication between the council members, security patrols, and citizens, enabling quicker response to emergencies and fostering a sense of collective security. The old, unreliable system of shouting across rooftops was replaced with a swift, efficient method of communication, greatly enhancing their coordination and response times. Silas, meanwhile, was focused on security enhancements. He integrated the improved communication network with the alarm system, creating a comprehensive early warning system. The system used a series of strategically placed motion sensors, coupled with repurposed security cameras, all linked to the central database. Any unusual activity triggered an immediate alert, enabling security personnel to respond swiftly and effectively. The old alarm system, prone to malfunctions and limited range, had been transformed into a sophisticated network that provided real-time security monitoring and rapid response capabilities. This enhanced security significantly reduced the frequency and audacity of raider attacks, allowing the community to focus on rebuilding rather than constantly fending off attacks. Beyond the immediate security needs, Sarah was exploring more ambitious projects. She had salvaged a number of old wind turbines from a nearby derelict farm, and was now working on repairing and modifying them to generate clean energy. The project was ambitious, requiring significant engineering and resourcefulness. However, her determination was unwavering. She knew that a reliable source of energy would be crucial to their long-term survival and prosperity. The wind turbines, if successfully repaired and integrated into the community grid, would significantly reduce their reliance on the limited fuel reserves, alleviating one of their most pressing concerns. Further, she was experimenting with hydroponic farming, utilizing salvaged pipes, water pumps, and grow lights to cultivate food within the confines of their limited space. This innovative approach allowed them to cultivate food even in the harsh conditions, reducing reliance on the dwindling external food supplies. Her early experiments with lettuce and herbs had proved successful, and she was now exploring more ambitious crops, including potatoes and other vegetables vital for sustaining the population. The integration of technology in this way had a transformative effect on their ability to produce food, reducing dependence on unreliable external sources. The technological advancements didn't just improve their immediate survival chances, they also fostered a sense of hope and self-reliance. The community, once 50, fragmented by fear and suspicion, now found a shared purpose in these technological projects. People contributed their skills, sharing their knowledge and expertise. A sense of camaraderie had sprung up around Sarah's workshop, transforming it into a hub of creativity and innovation. Men and women, young and old, contributed in various capacities, from repairing circuits to assisting with data entry. This collective effort transformed what might have been a seemingly insurmountable challenge into a testament to their collective resilience. The tangible improvements brought about by Sarah's work instilled confidence and hope. The regular flow of information, the enhanced security, and the prospect of a more reliable energy source gave them a sense of control over their lives, a feeling that had been absent for so long. The fear that had paralyzed them was slowly being replaced by a cautious optimism, a belief that they could, in fact, rebuild their lives and create a sustainable future. The repaired communication systems enabled the efficient distribution of information regarding the improvements and innovations in their community. The successes of the technological advancements weren't just limited to the physical infrastructure, but served to create a unified community, a sense of shared purpose and pride in their progress. This sense of shared achievement fostered unity and cooperation, strengthening their social fabric as much as it bolstered their physical infrastructure. It was a testament to the human spirit's capacity for resilience, adaptation, and innovation. But Sarah knew that their work was far from over. The challenges were immense, the resources scarce, and the future uncertain. Yet, she found strength in the collective effort, in the shared belief that through ingenuity and determination, they could overcome their hardships. The glow of the computer screen illuminated her determined face, a beacon of hope in the dusty streets of Franklin, a symbol of a future being forged not just from grit and resilience, but also from the power of human ingenuity and collaboration. The technological advancements weren't merely tools, they were instruments of hope, empowering them to reclaim their future, one line of code, one repaired circuit, one whirring turbine at a time. The hum of the generator, a steady rhythm against the backdrop of the night, was a promise of a future powered not just by necessity, but by the indomitable spirit of human innovation. The technological improvements were only a stepping stone towards a better future, one that required constant vigilance, ongoing innovation, and a united community striving for a better tomorrow. The future of Franklin was not simply about survival, but about thriving, powered by the combined strength of 51, technology and human determination. The quiet hum of Sarah's workshop became a symbol of that enduring spirit, a testament to the enduring hope amidst the ashes of the past. The rhythmic hum of the generator, a constant companion to the night, was a far cry from the silence that had once choked the town of Franklin. That silence, a heavy blanket woven from fear and distrust, was slowly unraveling, thread by painstaking thread, thanks to the efforts of the people themselves. Sarah's technological advancements had laid the groundwork, but it was the rekindled spirit of community that was truly cementing the foundation of their new world. The weekly community gatherings, initially hesitant affairs marked by strained smiles and averted gazes, began to blossom into something vibrant and alive. The initial meetings had been primarily logistical, focused on distributing supplies and addressing immediate needs, but as the weeks progressed, they morphed into something more, a space for sharing stories, concerns, and dreams. Elderly Mrs. Gable, whose weathered hands once trembled with fear, now led lively sing-alongs, her voice, though frail, carrying a surprising strength. Children, who had previously huddled in fear, now ran freely, their laughter echoing through the streets, a joyous soundtrack to the rebuilding process. One evening, amidst the chatter of the community gathering, a young man named Thomas stood up, his eyes shining with a newfound confidence. He was an artist before the collapse, his hands once skilled at crafting intricate sculptures. His skills, once viewed as frivolous, now found new purpose. He'd begun teaching a group of children to sculpt with salvaged metal, their creations, abstract representations of hope and resilience, adorning the newly repaired town square. His initiative sparked a ripple effect, inspiring others to share their skills. A former teacher, Maria, began organizing literacy classes, using salvaged books and repurposed materials to create learning resources. A former mechanic, John, started teaching basic car repair, his knowledge proving vital for keeping the few remaining vehicles operational. The initiative wasn't solely about teaching practical skills, it was about fostering a sense of worth and belonging. Many felt a sense of loss, a feeling of having lost their purpose in the chaos. These activities offered a chance to reclaim their identities, to rediscover their passions, and to contribute to the collective effort. The tangible results of their combined efforts, a brighter town square, children learning to read, vehicles back on the road, served as potent symbols of hope, tangible evidence of their resilience. 52. The communal garden, initially a small patch of land cleared near the river, expanded rapidly. The initial skepticism toward Sarah's hydroponic system had given way to enthusiastic participation. People began cultivating their own plots, sharing seeds, techniques, and advice. The abundance of fresh herbs and vegetables brought not only sustenance but also a renewed sense of connection to the land. The garden became a place of shared labor and communal joy, a stark contrast to the grim reality of their existence. The harvest festivals, initially small gatherings, grew into boisterous celebrations, showcasing the bounty of their collective efforts, a tangible symbol of their growing strength. Sarah, observing this blossoming community spirit, realized that her technological innovations were merely tools to facilitate this deeper, more profound transformation. The database, which once served primarily as a resource management system, was now also a platform for fostering collaboration and communication. People used it to coordinate tasks, share information, and organize community events. The communication network, initially designed for security, allowed them to share news, updates, and celebrations across the community. The wind turbines, once symbolic of a technological challenge, became beacons of hope, visible reminders of their capacity for innovation and self-reliance. Silas, once solely focused on security, found himself increasingly involved in the community initiatives. He organized security patrols that actively participated in community events, ensuring safety while also forging bonds with the citizens. He created a community watch program, empowering citizens to take an active role in protecting their town. The increased security, coupled with the enhanced sense of community, brought about a dramatic decrease in crime. The raiders, accustomed to exploiting the weaknesses of a fractured society, found themselves facing a united front. One particular event served as a potent example of this newfound unity. A severe storm threatened to flood the river, jeopardizing the crops and potentially damaging the town. Instead of panic, the community responded with remarkable efficiency. Using the communication network, Sarah coordinated teams to reinforce the flood defenses. Silas led security personnel in assisting the elderly and those with mobility issues to safety. The entire community worked together, their combined efforts averting a potential catastrophe. This event became a pivotal moment, a shared experience that forged even stronger bonds of trust and cooperation. 53. As the weeks turned into months, the transformation of Franklin was remarkable. The town, once a symbol of despair and destruction, was slowly becoming a beacon of hope and resilience. The scars of the past remained, but they were gradually being covered with a layer of newfound community spirit, a testament to the power of human connection and collaboration. The repaired buildings, the thriving garden, the laughter of children, these were not just symbols of physical rebuilding but also indicators of a community reborn, a community that had learned to build not just houses and infrastructure, but also relationships, trust, and shared purpose. The community spirit was no longer just a fragile hope, it was a robust, enduring force, capable of weathering future storms, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of adversity. The technological advancements were important, yes, but they were ultimately tools used to build something far greater, a community of hope, resilience, and enduring strength. The future of Franklin wasn't just about survival, it was about thriving together. The tranquility of Franklin's rebirth was a fragile thing, a flickering candle flame in the howling wind of a post-apocalyptic world. The idyllic scenes of children's laughter and community gatherings masked a harsh reality. They were not alone. Rumors, whispers carried on the wind, spoke of scavengers, desperate bands roaming the wasteland, preying on the weak. These were not the organized raiders of the past, but opportunistic groups, drawn by the faint smoke of hope rising from Franklin's chimneys. The first sign was the missing livestock. Several families who'd managed to salvage a few chickens or goats found their animals gone, leaving behind only muddy tracks and a lingering sense of unease. Then came the incidents of petty theft, tools disappearing from workshops, supplies vanishing from the communal storehouse. These were not coordinated attacks, but opportunistic raids, probing for weaknesses, testing the resolve of the newly formed community. Sarah, ever vigilant, adjusted the security protocols, bolstering the perimeter defenses and enhancing the surveillance systems. The wind turbines, once symbols of renewal, now served as watchtowers, their rotating blades providing a panoramic view of the surrounding landscape. Silas, his face etched with grim determination, organized additional patrols, his team armed with scavenged weapons and a fierce loyalty to the community. Grisham, however, remained skeptical of escalating the conflict. He argued that provoking a larger confrontation would risk depleting their limited resources in 54, undermining the hard-won peace. His strategy was one of cautious containment, a policy of measured response, focused on deterring further attacks without initiating open warfare. This cautious approach, however, was not universally embraced. Many felt a growing sense of vulnerability, a fear that Grisham's restraint would be interpreted as weakness. The tension reached a boiling point during the Harvest Festival. The celebration, a testament to their resilience, was interrupted by a volley of rocks, crashing into the makeshift stage and scattering the merrymakers. The attackers, unseen, retreated into the darkness, leaving behind a trail of fear and anger. Grisham's calm demeanor couldn't mask the anxiety in his eyes as he surveyed the damage. The incident revealed the precarious nature of their peace, a fragile equilibrium that could easily be shattered. The following days were marked by a palpable sense of dread. The community, once vibrant and hopeful, was gripped by anxiety. The children, once boisterous and playful, huddled close to their parents, their laughter replaced by nervous whispers. Even the rhythmic hum of the generator seemed to carry a note of apprehension. The attack on the Harvest Festival was a stark reminder of the dangers that lurked beyond their walls. It was no longer a matter of if, but when, the next attack would come. Sarah, working tirelessly in her makeshift laboratory, enhanced the surveillance systems, deploying drones equipped with thermal imaging to patrol the perimeter. She also developed a network of early warning systems, utilizing sensors to detect any unusual activity approaching the town. Her technological innovations, while providing a degree of security, couldn't completely eliminate the threat. The community needed a more proactive defense strategy, a way to deal with the escalating attacks. Silas, ever pragmatic, proposed forming a dedicated defense force. He believed a small, highly trained unit could effectively deter and repel potential attackers, minimizing casualties and preserving resources. Grisham, still hesitant, agreed to a compromise. A select group of volunteers, chosen for their physical strength and combat experience, would receive advanced training in self-defense and weapon handling. The training program was rigorous, pushing the volunteers to their physical and mental limits. They learned hand-to-hand combat, weapons proficiency, and tactical maneuvers, all while battling the constant threat of another attack. As the training progressed, the attacks grew bolder. One night, a group of scavengers attempted to breach the perimeter fence, their intentions clearly malicious. The 55, newly formed defense force, though still in training, responded with a coordinated defense, repelling the attackers and inflicting minor casualties. The incident, though tense, served as a powerful demonstration of the community's growing capacity for self-defense. It also showcased the effectiveness of Sarah's advanced surveillance systems. The drones tracked the scavengers' escape, providing invaluable intelligence about their numbers, routes, and potential alliances. The success of this encounter, however, was short-lived. News arrived of a larger group, a well-organized band of raiders, converging on Franklin. They were not scavengers seeking opportunistic gain, but a well-equipped force with a clear objective: conquest. Their numbers were far superior to the town's defenses, their weapons more advanced. Grisham, facing a looming threat to his community, finally conceded the need for a decisive response. His cautious strategy was no longer viable. Franklin faced its greatest challenge yet. The atmosphere within Franklin shifted. The tentative hope of the previous months was replaced by a grim determination. The community, united by a shared sense of danger, prepared for war. Children helped mend clothes, women stocked supplies, and men sharpened weapons. Sarah worked tirelessly, upgrading the defenses, ensuring every possible advantage. Silas, his face grim, organized the defense force, planning strategies, assigning roles, and preparing for the inevitable confrontation. The raiders arrived at dawn, their numbers far exceeding expectations. They were well equipped, armed with weapons scavenged from the old world, their ranks led by a ruthless leader whose reputation preceded him. The attack began with a barrage of rockets, targeting the wind turbines and the perimeter defenses. The town was thrown into chaos, the meticulously planned defenses overwhelmed by sheer force. The battle raged throughout the day, a desperate struggle for survival. The community fought with courage and determination, their collective spirit undaunted. But the raiders' superior numbers and weaponry forced them into a defensive position, the fate of Franklin hanging precariously in the balance. As the sun set, painting the sky in hues of blood orange, the outcome of the battle remained uncertain. The fight was far from over, the fate of Franklin a question mark against the bleak horizon. The relentless attack continued into the night, testing the resilience and fortitude of the town's inhabitants. The future, once a beacon of hope, now seemed shrouded in uncertainty. The relentless assault, an unrelenting onslaught of force against their carefully built defenses, threatened to erase the painstaking progress of the past months. The clash of metal against metal, the screams, and the gunfire echoed through the night, painting a grim tableau of 56. Struggle and defiance. The community fought as one, but the superior numbers and equipment of the raiders brought them to the brink. Just as hope seemed to wane, Sarah, in a desperate maneuver, unleashed a counteroffensive using a new weapon, a culmination of months of tireless work. The outcome remained uncertain, hanging in the balance. The dawn broke, painting the sky in bruised purples and angry oranges, a fitting backdrop to the carnage of the night. The air hung thick with the smell of cordite and blood, a grim testament to the ferocity of the battle. Franklin, once a symbol of hope, now lay scarred and battered, its defenses breached, its people weary but not broken. The raiders, their initial onslaught having met unexpected resistance, had retreated to regroup, leaving behind a scene of devastation. Sarah, her face smudged with grime and exhaustion, surveyed the damage. The wind turbines, once proud sentinels, were reduced to twisted metal skeletons. Sections of the perimeter fence lay crumpled, testament to the raiders' brutal assault. Casualties were heavy, but miraculously, no one had died. The community had held, their resilience exceeding even their own expectations. The success wasn't attributable to any single factor, but rather to a confluence of elements. Sarah's ingenious technological innovations, Silas's tactical brilliance, and above all, the unwavering courage and cooperation of every single member of the community. The children, too young to fully grasp the danger, had played a surprisingly vital role. Their small hands had mended clothes, carried water, and offered words of encouragement to the exhausted fighters. Their innocent presence amidst the destruction served as a potent reminder of what they were fighting for. Grisham, his initial skepticism replaced by awe and gratitude, moved among the injured, offering comfort and tending to their wounds. His cautious approach, while initially questioned, had ultimately prevented unnecessary bloodshed. His focus on preserving resources had proved crucial in sustaining the community throughout the protracted battle. He had learned a valuable lesson about the delicate balance between prudence and action, a lesson forged in the crucible of conflict. The aftermath was a period of grim assessment and painstaking reconstruction. The community rallied together, their shared experience forging an even stronger bond. Women, their hands hardened by toil, worked tirelessly alongside men to repair the damage, their efforts fueled by an unwavering sense of purpose. Children, their faces stained with soot, helped gather salvaged materials, their small hands sorting through the debris. The rebuilding process was slow and arduous, but each act of repair was a 57. Statement of defiance, a testament to their resolve. Sarah, ever the pragmatist, immediately began upgrading the defenses. She analyzed the raiders' tactics, identifying their weaknesses and strengths. Using the intelligence gathered from her drone surveillance, she developed an improved early warning system, strengthening the perimeter defenses and integrating new technologies to enhance their effectiveness. She worked tirelessly, her exhaustion masked by an unwavering commitment to securing the community's future. She knew this wouldn't be the last attack, and preparations needed to be swift and efficient. Silas, drawing upon his military experience, reorganized the defense force. He implemented a more robust training program, incorporating new strategies and techniques learned from the recent battle. He meticulously planned contingency measures, ensuring the community was prepared for a variety of scenarios. The force, now smaller but more highly trained and cohesive, instilled renewed confidence in the community. Their presence was a symbol of resilience, a testament to their commitment to protecting Franklin. The experience had indelibly changed Franklin. The idyllic community, once characterized by its innocence and naivety, was now hardened, but not embittered. They had faced adversity and emerged stronger, their unity forged in the fires of conflict. They had learned the value of preparedness, the importance of collaboration, and the power of hope. They understood the fragility of peace and the constant vigilance required to maintain it. But they also knew the strength that lay within their community, a strength born of shared experience and mutual support. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Franklin slowly healed, the scars of the battle slowly fading into memory, though they would forever serve as a reminder of the challenges they'd overcome. The community, united by their shared trauma, found new ways to strengthen their bonds. The children's laughter, once subdued, returned, but it was a different sound, a laughter tinged with a maturity that belied their age. The threat of further attacks loomed large. Reports reached Franklin of other settlements falling to raiders, their inhabitants dispersed or enslaved. But Franklin remained a beacon of hope, an island of resilience in a sea of chaos. The community's survival was not just a matter of luck, but of strategic planning and unwavering determination. The combined efforts of Sarah, Silas, and Grisham had proven to be invaluable assets. 58. Sarah, driven by her passion for innovation, continually improved upon her defense systems. Silas, employing his leadership skills and strategic mind, kept the defense force prepared and trained. Grisham, who had learned that caution should not be equated with inaction, ensured that the community was well provisioned and well prepared for the future, while still nurturing their spirits. Their leadership, combined with the community's steadfast resolve, stood as a testament to the enduring power of human spirit. The future remained uncertain, but it was a future they were prepared to face. The ghosts of the battle still lingered, but they served as a constant reminder of the strength of the community, their resilience, and their enduring hope. The scars of the past would never fully disappear, but they had proven their ability to overcome adversity, and that hope, however fragile, could bloom even in the harshest of landscapes. They had built not only a physical community, but a spiritual one, bound by shared experience, shared sorrow, and shared, unwavering hope for the future. The faint smoke of hope still rose from Franklin's chimneys, but it was a stronger, more resilient smoke now, one that had weathered the storm and stood defiant against the darkness. The quiet hum of the generator had changed its tune. It was no longer a mere machine. It was a symphony of survival, a testament to their determination, their cooperation, and their enduring spirit. Chapter 5. Uncertain Future. The silence that followed the raiders' retreat was heavier than the gunfire. A thick pall of smoke still clung to the air, a ghostly shroud obscuring the ravaged landscape. The sun, finally breaking through the smoke, cast long, skeletal shadows from the ruined wind turbines, highlighting the extent of the devastation. The once vibrant fields surrounding Franklin were scarred, churned earth, a testament to the violence that had transpired. Yet, amidst the ruins, life stubbornly persisted. Sarah, her face streaked with soot and grime, moved through the wreckage, her gaze sharp and assessing. She wasn't merely surveying the physical damage, she was cataloging losses, evaluating needs, and already formulating solutions. The destruction was immense, but her mind, fueled by a pragmatic determination, was already strategizing. The repair of the physical structures was only half the battle. The emotional wounds of the community needed tending as well. She knew that the psychological scars of the night would linger long after the physical ones were mended. Silas, his military training evident in his methodical approach, oversaw the organization of the cleanup. He delegated tasks with quiet efficiency, his voice calm and reassuring amidst the chaos. His men, though weary and battered, moved with a disciplined precision born of experience and shared trauma. They worked in teams, clearing debris, securing unstable structures, and tending to the injured. The camaraderie forged in the heat of battle was now channeled into the arduous task of rebuilding. Grisham, his initial skepticism completely dispelled, worked tirelessly alongside them. His meticulous nature, once a source of friction, was now invaluable. He meticulously inventoried the remaining supplies, assessing their viability and planning for future needs. He knew that rebuilding Franklin wouldn't just require physical resources, it would require careful planning and efficient resource allocation. His expertise in sustainable living, initially dismissed by some as overly cautious, now proved crucial in charting a path toward long-term survival. He understood the delicate balance between immediate needs and long-term sustainability, a balance he had learned through the bitter lessons of the previous night. The women of Franklin were a force to be reckoned with. Their hands, usually occupied with tending gardens or weaving textiles, were now hardened by the physical labor of clearing rubble and shoring up damaged buildings. Their strength, 60, both physical and emotional, was a source of inspiration, their determination unyielding. They worked alongside the men, sharing the burden and bolstering each other's spirits. Their resilience, honed by generations of facing hardship, shone through in their unwavering commitment to their community. They sang as they worked, their voices carrying across the ravaged landscape, a mournful but defiant chorus of hope. The children, surprisingly resilient despite their tender years, played a critical role in the recovery. Their small hands, adept at helping with chores before the attack, now aided in the sorting of salvaged materials, their innocent eyes observing the efforts of the adults with a solemnity beyond their years. Their presence served as a potent reminder of what they were fighting for, a future where they could once again play freely in the fields, without the constant fear of another attack. Their laughter, though subdued, returned in cautious bursts amidst the labor, a fragile but powerful testament to the indomitable spirit of the human heart. The days that followed were a blur of intense activity. The community worked with a feverish energy, fueled by a potent cocktail of adrenaline, grief, and unwavering determination. Each piece of salvaged wood, each salvaged metal sheet, was a victory, a small step in the long and arduous journey toward rebuilding their homes and their lives. The shared experience had forged a bond stronger than any the community had ever known. Their interdependence, once a comfortable arrangement, had become a lifeline, a mutual support system that held them together during their darkest hour. Sarah continued to refine her defense systems, working late into the night, fueled by coffee and an almost frightening intensity. She understood that the threat of further attacks was ever present, and she would not let her guard down. She developed improved surveillance systems, integrating more sophisticated sensors and incorporating advanced algorithms to identify potential threats early. Her work was not merely about physical security, it was about safeguarding the emotional security of the community, creating a space where they could finally begin to heal. Silas, meanwhile, focused on reorganizing the defense force, implementing new training programs and developing contingency plans for various attack scenarios. He instilled in his troops not just martial skills, but also the importance of cohesion and discipline. He knew that their effectiveness lay not just in their individual strength, but in their collective ability to work together, to rely on each other without hesitation. His training sessions were rigorous but purposeful, designed to build confidence and resilience, a reminder that even amidst despair, hope could take root. 61. And flourish. Grisham, his role now transcending his initial responsibilities, became the heart of the community's rebuilding efforts. He understood that survival wasn't simply about food and shelter, it was about maintaining the spirit of the community. He organized communal meals, fostering a sense of togetherness and sharing. He encouraged storytelling, providing a means for the community to process their experiences and find solace in shared memories. He recognized that the wounds of trauma extended beyond the physical, and he dedicated himself to healing the emotional scars as well. The rebuilding of Franklin was not merely a physical process, it was a spiritual one. The community had faced the depths of despair and emerged stronger, their bonds forged in the crucible of conflict. The scars of the battle would forever remain, etched into the landscape and imprinted on their souls, but they were scars of resilience, of shared trauma transformed into shared strength. They were a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit, a beacon of hope in a world shrouded in darkness. As the months passed, Franklin slowly began to resemble its former self. New structures rose from the rubble, testament to the community's unwavering determination. The wind turbines, though scarred, were slowly being repaired, their whirring blades once again a symbol of progress and self-reliance. The fields, though still scarred, showed signs of new life, the green shoots of hope pushing through the charred earth. The children's laughter, while still tinged with a cautious awareness of the past, grew louder, their playful energy a welcome counterpoint to the grim memories that still lingered. The future remained uncertain. Rumors of further raids continued to reach Franklin, grim reminders of the precariousness of their situation. But Franklin stood defiant, a testament to the enduring strength of the human spirit, a symbol of hope in a world fractured by violence and uncertainty. The community, bound by shared experience, shared sorrow, and shared hope, faced the future not with fear, but with a quiet, steely determination, their resilience a testament to their enduring spirit. The smoke from their chimneys still rose, but it was a different smoke now, thicker, stronger, a tangible expression of their collective will to survive, to rebuild, and to endure. The process of rebuilding Franklin wasn't solely about bricks and mortar, salvaged metal, and replanted seeds. It was about mending the invisible cracks that had fractured the community's spirit, the subtle fissures of mistrust and unspoken resentments that had lingered beneath the surface even before the raid. The shared 62 trauma, while forging a powerful bond, had also unearthed long-dormant conflicts. Old grudges, simmering for years, threatened to boil over amidst the chaos of recovery. Sarah, ever the pragmatist, recognized this unspoken tension. She initiated small, informal gatherings, ostensibly to discuss resource allocation and work schedules. But her real aim was to facilitate dialogue, to create a space where people could openly acknowledge their feelings, both positive and negative, without judgment. These meetings were initially strained, marked by silences and averted gazes. The memories of the attack, the palpable fear of another, hung heavy in the air, creating a barrier between neighbors who had once considered themselves friends. One evening, during a particularly tense meeting concerning the distribution of limited medical supplies, a heated argument erupted between Martha, an elderly woman known for her sharp tongue and even sharper wit, and Elias, a younger man who had always held a grudge against Martha's family for a land dispute that dated back generations. Their argument, fueled by exhaustion and stress, quickly escalated, threatening to derail the entire meeting. Sarah, however, remained calm. She didn't intervene directly, instead allowing the anger to play out, observing the dynamics of the conflict with a keen eye. When the initial outburst subsided, a weary silence fell over the group. It was Silas who broke the tension, his voice low and measured. He spoke not of right or wrong, but of shared suffering and the necessity of mutual support. He reminded them that their common enemy wasn't each other, but the uncertainty and hardship that still loomed. His words were simple, devoid of platitudes, but their impact was profound. Grisham, quietly observing from the sidelines, stepped forward. He shared a personal story, recounting a past disagreement he had with Silas himself, a conflict that had nearly fractured their friendship. He described the process of reconciliation, the slow, painful work of understanding, forgiveness, and rebuilding trust. His vulnerability, his willingness to expose his own imperfections, disarmed the group, breaking the ice that had formed between them. His story served as a powerful example, demonstrating the possibility of healing even the deepest wounds. The women of Franklin played a pivotal role in the reconciliation process. They, more than anyone, understood the importance of empathy and forgiveness. They had borne the brunt of both the physical and emotional toll of the raid, and their shared experience had created an unbreakable bond among them. They acted as mediators, patiently listening to the grievances of the community members, offering words of 63, comfort and understanding. They organized communal healing sessions, combining traditional remedies with emotional support, creating a safe space for people to share their fears and anxieties without shame or judgment. The children, too, played a crucial, albeit unexpected, role in the healing process. Their innocence, their inherent capacity for empathy, served as a potent antidote to the bitterness and resentment that still lingered. One day, a small group of children was observed playing together, Elias and Martha's grandchildren among them. Their innocent interactions, their spontaneous acts of kindness, served as a powerful reminder of the importance of reconciliation. The adults, watching this spontaneous display of unity, were moved to tears, a testament to the resilience and transformative power of the young. Slowly, painstakingly, the community began to heal. The process was neither quick nor easy. It required patience, understanding, and a willingness to confront the painful truths that lay beneath the surface. It required acknowledging past wrongs, offering apologies, and accepting forgiveness. It required acknowledging that every member of the community had been impacted by the raid, had suffered losses, both visible and invisible. The rebuilding of Franklin became a shared act of atonement, a collective pilgrimage toward forgiveness and healing. The sharing of meals, the collective labor, the shared stories, all contributed to the weaving of a new social fabric, stronger and more resilient than the one that had existed before the raid. The scars remained, both physical and emotional, but they were now interwoven with the threads of reconciliation, forming a complex tapestry of shared experience, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit to heal and rebuild. The wind turbines, slowly regaining their full rotational power, became a potent symbol of this renewal. Their blades, once still and broken, now spun against the sky, a visible representation of the community's collective effort. The whirring of the blades was no longer just a sound of technological advancement, but a testament to the community's ability to overcome adversity, to reconcile, and to heal. The rhythmic turning of the blades mirrored the steady pulse of the community's renewed heart. The land, too, reflected this profound shift. While the scars of the raid were visible, the fields were again alive with crops, their green shoots a vibrant promise of new beginnings. The once churned earth, now cultivated with renewed energy, bore fruit, literally and metaphorically, a symbol of collective renewal and a testament to 64, the enduring strength of the human spirit. The harvest was bountiful, a shared celebration of the community's resilience and their collective triumph over adversity. Even the children's play took on a new significance. Their games, once subdued and cautious, were now filled with boisterous energy, reflecting the restored vitality of their community. Their laughter, once tinged with fear, now echoed freely across the re-emerging fields, a powerful symphony of healing and hope. The future remained uncertain, but the community approached it with a newfound confidence, strengthened by their journey through reconciliation and healing. The scars of the past served as a constant reminder of the fragility of peace and the importance of mutual understanding, but they also stood as a testament to the community's remarkable ability to overcome hardship, to forgive, and to rebuild not just their homes, but their relationships. The smoke from their chimneys still rose, a constant presence, but now it carried with it not just the scent of wood smoke, but the tangible aroma of hope, the scent of healing, and the pervasive fragrance of a community reborn. The sound of the wind turbines now intertwined with the joyous laughter of children, creating a unique symphony of resilience, a melody of renewal, a harmonious chorus celebrating the enduring triumph of the human spirit. The future might remain uncertain, but the path to their future was now paved with the unshakable foundations of forgiveness, empathy, and unity. The Harvest Festival, a riot of color and sound, marked a turning point. It wasn't just a celebration of the bountiful crops, it was a declaration of intent, a public affirmation of Franklin's commitment to a sustainable future. Sarah, standing on a makeshift platform fashioned from salvaged wood, addressed the assembled community. Her voice, amplified by a jury-rigged sound system cobbled together from scavenged parts, carried across the field, resonating with a quiet strength that belied the weariness etched onto her face. "The raid stole much from us," she began, her words measured, deliberate, "but it didn't steal our spirit, our resilience, or our ability to plan for tomorrow. We've rebuilt our homes, our community, our hope. Now, we must build our future." Her words were met with a murmur of agreement, a low hum of shared understanding. The community, forged in the crucible of trauma, understood the urgency of her message. The immediate needs were addressed, but long-term survival demanded a different approach, a strategic, forward-thinking plan that went beyond mere survival. 65. The first step, she explained, was to solidify their food security. The success of the harvest was a testament to their collective effort, but reliance on solely seasonal crops was precarious. A year-round food supply was essential. This meant expanding their greenhouses, experimenting with hydroponics, and developing a robust system of food preservation, techniques Sarah herself had diligently researched using salvaged books and online fragments of pre-collapse knowledge. Grisham, with his engineering expertise, took on the ambitious project of constructing a larger, more efficient greenhouse using recycled materials and innovative design principles. He envisioned a self-regulating system, powered by renewable energy sources. Simultaneously, the community focused on diversifying their energy sources. While the wind turbines provided a significant source of power, they were vulnerable to weather patterns. Solar panels, carefully crafted and meticulously installed, supplemented the turbines, creating a resilient energy grid. Silas, always the pragmatist, oversaw this critical aspect, meticulously calculating energy needs and optimizing efficiency. He even implemented a system of battery storage, using salvaged car batteries and innovative circuitry to ensure a consistent energy supply even during periods of low wind or cloud cover. The community learned to live sustainably, maximizing resources, minimizing waste, and embracing a cyclical approach to living, mirroring the natural rhythms of the land. Beyond food and energy, the community focused on education and technological advancement. Sarah, with the help of some of the community's more technically minded members, established a makeshift schoolhouse, using scavenged books, salvaged computers, and limited internet access to educate the next generation. The curriculum focused not only on traditional subjects but also on essential skills, mechanics, engineering, agriculture, and sustainable living practices. They shared knowledge and expertise, transferring skills from one generation to another, ensuring the community's ability to adapt and thrive in an ever-changing environment. The community's commitment to technological advancement wasn't about reverting to a pre-collapse technology-dependent society. Instead, it was about harnessing technology to enhance their sustainability and resilience. They focused on repairing and repurposing existing technology, rather than seeking out new, resource-intensive innovations. Repair workshops became common, fostering collective knowledge and skills. Broken tools, damaged machinery, and malfunctioning equipment were treated not as waste but as opportunities to learn and innovate. 66. One of the most ambitious projects undertaken was the construction of a water purification system. The closest reliable water source was miles away, requiring arduous journeys. The community decided to build a robust system that would purify rainwater and utilize existing underground water resources. Grisham, along with several others, embarked on this project, meticulously researching and developing the system. The result was a marvel of ingenuity, a testament to the community's collective expertise and commitment to sustainable living. The long-term plans also included community defense. The raid had left a deep scar, a constant reminder of their vulnerability. While they had healed the emotional wounds, they couldn't afford to ignore the physical threat. They established a system of watchtowers and early warning signals, using a network of strategically positioned mirrors to detect approaching threats. They also developed a comprehensive defense strategy, emphasizing community participation and collaboration. Self-defense training became a part of the community's regular activities, empowering individuals and solidifying their collective security. Alongside the practical initiatives, Sarah initiated a program of oral history and storytelling. The experiences of the raid, the struggles of rebuilding, the lessons learned, all were meticulously documented, ensuring that future generations wouldn't forget the fragility of their world and the importance of resilience and community. Years passed. Franklin evolved, becoming a self-sufficient, sustainable community, a testament to the power of human ingenuity, resilience, and cooperation. The scars of the past remained, faint reminders etched onto the landscape and the faces of its inhabitants. But those scars were now interwoven with the vibrant tapestry of a community thriving in the uncertain future. The children, born after the raid, knew only a life of relative peace and prosperity, their games reflecting the security of their surroundings. The wind turbines spun tirelessly against the sky, their rhythmic were a constant reminder of their hard-won independence. The laughter of children echoed across the fields, their innocent joy a vibrant counterpoint to the quiet determination that shone in the eyes of the adults. Their journey had been a testament to the power of human spirit, the enduring ability to heal, to adapt, and to thrive even in the face of unimaginable adversity. Franklin, reborn from the ashes of destruction, stood as a beacon of hope, a living example of a community that not only survived, but flourished in the face of an uncertain future. Their long-term plans, meticulously crafted and relentlessly pursued, had 67. Transformed them from survivors into pioneers, shaping a sustainable, vibrant future on the foundations of shared experience, resilience, and an unyielding commitment to a better tomorrow. The smoke from their chimneys still rose, but now it carried with it the sweet scent of success, the subtle aroma of hope, the unmistakable fragrance of a community not merely surviving, but truly thriving. The future, though still uncertain, was now shaped by their hands, a testament to the enduring power of human determination and community spirit. The wind whispered through the fields, carrying with it the faint echoes of laughter, the quiet murmur of resilience, and the confident rustle of a future being built, one sturdy brick, one resilient heart, at a time. The relative peace of Franklin, hard-won and carefully nurtured, proved fragile. The first sign was subtle, a series of unexplained power outages, brief but unsettling interruptions to their carefully constructed energy grid. Silas, ever vigilant, initially attributed them to unforeseen weather patterns or equipment malfunction. He meticulously checked the wind turbines, the solar panels, the battery banks, finding no obvious cause for the disruptions. The outages became more frequent, more erratic, lasting longer each time, plunging the community into darkness and raising a chilling sense of unease. Then came the whispers. Rumors, initially dismissed as idle gossip, began to circulate. Strange sightings, shadows moving in the periphery, faint sounds in the dead of night, the unsettling feeling of being watched. These were not the familiar threats of scavengers or desperate survivors. These felt different, more organized, more menacing. The community's early warning system, once a source of reassurance, now felt inadequate, its mirrors reflecting only an unnerving stillness. Sarah, acutely aware of the shift in the atmosphere, called a community meeting. The usual festive spirit was absent, replaced by a palpable tension. The faces around her, usually etched with the quiet determination of a community thriving against the odds, were now strained, marked by apprehension. She addressed them directly, her voice firm but laced with a cautiousness she rarely displayed. "We've built something remarkable here," she began, her gaze sweeping across the assembled faces. "Something worth protecting. But the peace we've enjoyed, it's been a fragile peace. We are facing new challenges, new threats, the nature of which we don't yet fully understand." Her words were met with a hushed silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of clothing or a nervous cough. Silas, his face grim, presented his findings on the power outages. His analysis revealed no technical failures. The disruptions seemed 68. Deliberate, targeted, as if someone or something was actively interfering with their energy supply. Grisham, ever the pragmatist, focused on the physical security of Franklin. He proposed reinforcing the community's defenses, strengthening the watchtowers, improving the early warning system, and intensifying their self-defense training. He suggested diversifying their energy sources further, exploring alternative methods of power generation, lest their current system be compromised again. His suggestions, typically met with enthusiasm, were now greeted with a heavy sense of foreboding. The community understood the implications. This wasn't a matter of upgrading their infrastructure, but of defending it against a far more insidious threat. The following weeks were filled with a renewed sense of urgency. The community worked tirelessly, reinforcing defenses, experimenting with new energy sources, and enhancing their surveillance network. The sense of collective security, once a source of strength, now felt strained. The children, previously oblivious to the dangers, began to sense the change, their carefree laughter subdued, replaced by an anxious quiet. One evening, a scouting party reported finding strange symbols etched into the nearby rock formations, symbols unlike any they had seen before. The symbols were intricate, ancient-looking, radiating an unsettling aura of mystery and foreboding. Sarah, recognizing the gravity of the situation, consulted the salvaged pre-collapse archives, hoping to find some clue to their meaning. The search yielded little. The symbols were unlike anything in the databases, hinting at a history or a culture unknown to them. The cryptic markings only deepened the sense of unease. The disruptions continued, escalating in intensity. Not just power outages now, but subtle acts of sabotage, damaged equipment, severed communication lines, poisoned water sources. These were not the clumsy actions of desperate scavengers. These were precise, calculated attacks, aimed at disrupting the fabric of their society. The community, hardened by years of adversity, responded with their characteristic resilience, but the constant threat chipped away at their resolve. Then came the night of the attack. A coordinated assault, swift and brutal, targeting the community's defenses. It wasn't a raid like the one that had forged their community. This was a carefully planned operation, a calculated strike against their carefully constructed world. The attackers were efficient, well-equipped, moving with a terrifying precision. They overwhelmed the watchtowers, disabled the early warning system, and breached the community's outer defenses with terrifying ease. 69. The community fought back with fierce determination, their years of training and preparation paying off. But they were outnumbered, outmatched. The attackers retreated before dawn, leaving behind a trail of destruction and a chilling sense of vulnerability. The losses were significant: damaged infrastructure, lost supplies, and, most devastatingly, casualties within the community. The faces of those fallen, etched in the community's memory, reminded them that their hard-won peace was far from secured. The aftermath was a grim testament to the attackers' ruthlessness. Sarah, surveying the damage, felt a cold dread creep into her heart. This was not a simple act of aggression. This was a calculated attack designed to cripple their society. The attackers knew their strengths, their vulnerabilities. They seemed to anticipate their every move, their strategies unnervingly precise. The question that plagued her wasn't just who they were, but what they wanted. The very survival of Franklin seemed to hang in the balance. The community, though shaken, remained resolute. They rebuilt, reinforced, and re-strategized, driven by a fierce determination to survive. But the attack left an indelible mark, a chilling reminder of the fragility of their carefully constructed world. The idyllic scene of children playing in the fields now carried a darker undercurrent, a constant, underlying awareness of unseen dangers. The sweet scent of success was now mingled with the bitter taste of loss. The whispers persisted, the shadows lingered, and the ominous symbols remained etched on the rocks, a haunting reminder of a larger conflict that lay just beyond their grasp, a conflict whose outcome remained uncertain. The future, once seemingly secure, was once again shrouded in uncertainty, its contours undefined, its outcome unknown. The wind still whispered through the fields, but now, it carried not just the echoes of laughter, but the chilling sound of an approaching storm. The rebuilding was not merely physical, it was a spiritual rebuilding, a recalibration of their understanding of the world around them, a testament to their enduring capacity for hope, even in the darkest hours. The future remained uncertain, but their resolve remained steadfast, a quiet beacon of resilience in the face of looming threats. The morning sun, weak and pale, struggled to pierce the lingering gloom that clung to Franklin. The air, thick with the scent of wood smoke and the metallic tang of blood, still bore the chilling echo of the previous night's attack. Yet, amidst the rubble and the sorrow, a flicker of defiance ignited. It wasn't a roaring blaze of optimism, but a small, persistent ember, refusing to be extinguished by the darkness. 70. Sarah, her face streaked with grime and exhaustion, surveyed the damage. The community's outer defenses, once a symbol of their resilience, lay in ruins. The watchtowers, their intricate systems of warning and defense now silent and broken, stood as stark reminders of their vulnerability. The losses were heavy, not just in terms of damaged equipment and lost supplies, but in the lives of their community members. The faces of the fallen, imprinted on her memory, served as a potent reminder of the fragility of their hard-won peace. But even as she acknowledged the enormity of their losses, a stubborn refusal to surrender flickered within her. She saw it in the grim determination etched on Silas' face as he assessed the damaged wind turbines, his hands already moving, calculating repairs, devising solutions. She saw it in Grisham's steely gaze as he organized the recovery efforts, his pragmatism tempered by a newly found urgency. And she saw it most profoundly in the eyes of the children, their initial fear slowly giving way to a quiet resolve. The rebuilding began, not with grand pronouncements or elaborate plans, but with small, incremental acts of defiance. The women, their faces etched with a mixture of grief and determination, salvaged what they could from the wreckage, tending to the wounded, comforting the bereaved. The men, their hands calloused and scarred, worked tirelessly to repair the damaged infrastructure, their movements precise and efficient, born of years of experience in a world that demanded resilience. The children, initially subdued, slowly found their way back to their playful energy. Their laughter, though quieter now, carried a newfound appreciation for the fragility of life. The process was slow and painstaking. Each piece of salvaged wood, each repaired wire, each rebuilt wall, represented a small victory against the encroaching darkness, a testament to their unwavering spirit. The community, united by their shared grief and their common purpose, worked with an almost feverish intensity, their collective energy propelling them forward. They didn't discuss their fears, there was simply too much to do. They didn't dwell on the uncertainties, their focus was on the immediate tasks at hand. Silas, with the help of a handful of volunteers, worked tirelessly to restore the community's power grid. He discovered that the sabotage had been incredibly sophisticated, extending far beyond simple vandalism. The attackers had not simply damaged equipment, they had systematically targeted the system's core, exploiting its weaknesses with chilling precision. But Silas, a master engineer, was not easily defeated. He worked day and night, poring over schematics, experimenting with new 71 designs, adapting their energy production to counteract the attackers' methods. He even discovered a way to enhance their solar panels using scavenged materials, increasing their energy output beyond expectations. Grisham, meanwhile, focused on reinforcing Franklin's defenses. He implemented new security measures, using scavenged materials to improve their watchtowers and early warning systems. He organized rigorous self-defense training sessions for the community members, reinforcing their combat skills and encouraging collaboration. His attention to detail was almost unnerving, as if he had predicted the nature of the attack, his responses precise and immediate. He introduced new surveillance technologies, enhancing their ability to detect any future intrusions. His actions were less a response to fear and more a strategic redirection of their capabilities, transforming their vulnerabilities into strengths. Sarah, burdened by the weight of leadership, found solace in the simple act of tending to the community garden. It was a small space, a pocket of life amidst the ruins, but it represented something far greater, a symbol of hope, of resilience, of life's enduring power. She watched as the children planted seeds, their small hands carefully nurturing the fragile seedlings. It was a poignant reminder that even in the darkest of times, life finds a way to persevere. The cryptic symbols, etched into the rocks, continued to haunt them. Sarah, driven by an insatiable curiosity and a growing sense of unease, continued her research. She delved deeper into the pre-collapse archives, poring over ancient texts, searching for any clues that might shed light on their meaning. She found snippets of information, fragments of history that hinted at a past far more complex and dangerous than she could have ever imagined. The more she learned, the more she realized the attack was not a random act of violence, but a meticulously planned operation, indicating a much larger conflict than they had anticipated. As weeks turned into months, the community slowly rebuilt. The scars remained physical scars on the landscape, emotional scars on their hearts, but they were healing, strengthened by their collective experience. The laughter of children once again filled the air, though tempered with a newfound awareness of the world's harsh realities. The community's sense of solidarity had deepened, forged in the crucible of adversity. The understanding that their survival depended on their unity became the backbone of their future. The power returned, steadier and more reliable than ever before. The defenses were stronger, more resilient, capable of withstanding even the most ferocious attacks. 72. The community, once fractured by uncertainty, was unified by its purpose. It was not merely surviving, it was thriving. They learned to adapt, to innovate, to overcome. And out of the ashes of destruction, a new kind of hope emerged, stronger, more determined, and more deeply rooted than before. The future was still uncertain, the shadows still lingered, and the whispers still persisted. But the fear, once paralyzing, now fueled them. It was the fuel for their resilience. Franklin stood not as a monument to past triumphs, but as a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit, a beacon of hope in a world shrouded in darkness, a living testament to the resilience, hope, and unwavering belief in the future. The seeds of a brighter tomorrow were sown, nurtured by the enduring human spirit, a quiet defiance that whispered louder than any storm. The future remained unwritten, but in the hearts of the people of Franklin, there was a flicker, a glimmer, a burning hope that refused to be extinguished.